Liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Tuesday to you, my little buddy.
Happy Tuesday, Crudy Evan on the board once again. Fancy Brian off today. Our fair audience, thank you for tuning in and joining this political party.
Dominic, we've got a big show ahead, including live coverage of the President of the United States. He's going to address the nation on the end of the war in Afghanistan. We're expecting Joe Biden nearly any minute. Above and beyond that, Dom, we got some fine guests, including our pal, fellow Devil radio talker Matt Flynn. He's a twice elected Wisconsin Democratic Party chairman. Hell, the guy ran for governor, but then again, didn't everybody? Matt Flynn's zooming into the party at 3:06 today. And also another fine guest, John Nichols, national affairs correspondent with The Nation. John's going to join us in the 4 o'clock happy hour. And John's going to tell us the Republican Party is dead. Or something of that sort.
We won't put words in his mouth. We'll let John say it.
But the Republican Party is dead. Your grandpa's Republican Party, it's dead. Also, I'd like to throw it out there before I forget, Tom. My 19th wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary to my blushing bride, the lovely Mrs. Crudy.
Wow, congratulations. 19 years. If you make it another year, I'm probably going to lose some money.
You and every other attendee. You know, it was a whirlwind romance, but it's stuck. It's stuck. So anyways, congratulations to us, the happy couple. We made it 19 years. Hell, I feel like fairly confident we're going to make it to 20 or more.
Probably like 63% chance.
You know, but she could take me out at any given time. All options are on the table. Dominic, before we hear from the president, let's get into the political sound. Rep. Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader, because everybody's sitting home saying, what's Rep. Kevin McCarthy have to say bad about Joe Biden today? So we're going to start with the oppositional sound, that of the minority leader on the House side, McCarthy. Evan, if you'd be so kind, play for the people, cut 10.
Never in my lifetime would I ever believe America would have an administration knowingly make a decision to leave Americans behind.
Let's play at least one more. Kevin McCarthy, cut number 11, please.
We now have Americans stuck in Afghanistan, the Taliban in charge, with more weaponry than they've ever had in the past.
A little bit more. Rep. Kevin McCarthy, lucky number 13, please, Evan.
I heard the Pentagon say the time just wasn't there to get more Americans out. But let me be crystal clear. This isn't the US government's timeline. It's the Taliban's timeline.
Yeah, we're already a little late from your guys' timeline, McCarthy. I think it was Trump who in February of 2020, let's not forget Pompeo and the current leader of the Taliban. Those pictures, let's remember all that. I think it was in May of 2021. And it was your guys who were in charge for the last 4 years training up this force. So, you know, lots of blame to go around. But unfortunately, yeah, there's apparently some Americans still there. Now this is what a diplomatic issue, a diplomatic mission. The State Department going to take point on this since all the soldiers are gone. And of course, that's going to rely even more on the Taliban government to assist in those evacuations. Certainly a concerning issue that I fully expect the president will address here shortly.
Well, as soon as Biden goes, we will take him live. But Dominic, I've got a headline. Barbara Starr, CNN Pentagon correspondent. Taliban members escorted Americans to the gates at Kabul airport in a secret arrangement with the U.S. Well, it ain't a secret anymore, Dom. The U.S. military negotiated a secret arrangement with the Taliban that resulted in Taliban members escorting groups of Americans to the gates at Kabul airport as they sought to escape Afghanistan, according to two defense officials. One of the officials also revealed that U.S. Special Operations Forces set up a secret gate at the airport and established call centers to guide Americans through the evacuation process. The officials said Americans were notified to gather at a preset muster point close to the airport where the Taliban would gather the Americans, check their credentials, and take them a short distance to a gate manned by American forces who were standing by to let them inside. And huge crowd of Afghans seeking to flee. The U.S. troops were able to see the Americans approach with their Taliban escorts in most cases in an attempt to ensure their safety. The officials spoke on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the arrangements, Tom, which have not been disclosed until now because the U.S. was concerned about the Taliban reaction to any publicity, as well as the threat of attacks from ISIS-K if its operatives had realized Americans were being escorted in groups. The officials said throughout the evacuation, the Biden administration officials stressed that the Taliban was cooperating, and senior officials stated that they had committed to provide safe passage for Americans. Safe passage, Tom. The Taliban.
The Taliban escort missions happened several times a day, according to one of the officials. One of the key muster points was a Ministry of Interior building just outside on the airport's gates, where nearby U.S. forces were readily able to observe the Americans' approach. Americans were notified by various messages about where to gather. It worked beautifully, one official said of the arrangement. As of Monday, when the U.S. completed its withdrawal, more than 122,000 people in total had been airlifted from the airport since July, and more than 6,000 American civilians evacuated. However, 13 service members and more than 170 Afghans were killed in a suicide blast at the airport last week. It is not clear if the Taliban, who were checking credentials during these efforts, turned away any of the Americans. There have been numerous reports of some Americans with passports and U.S. green card holders were turned away from Taliban checkpoints close to the airport. In another separate secret arrangement not disclosed until the operation was over, troops from the Elite Joint Special Operations Command and other special operations units were also on the ground helping Americans escape by contacting them through call centers, one of the officials said. Special operations forces set up their own secret gate at the airport and was at times in direct communications with Americans, telling them exactly where to walk to find the gate and be able to get inside the airport.
Going to bring it on down to...
Oh, sure. The commander of the U.S. Central Command, Frank McKenzie, first publicly revealed the involvement of Special Operations Forces at a Monday press conference, saying those forces helped evacuate more than 1,000 American citizens and more than 2,000 Afghans via phone calls, vectors, and escorting. Special Operations Forces reached out to help bring in more than 1,064 American citizens and 2,017 SIVs or Afghans at risk, and 127 third-party nationals via phone calls, vectors, and escorting, he said. But in public comments, McKenzie did not specify the involvement of the JSOC, which includes forces that carry out the most dangerous counterterrorism missions, such as Army's Delta Force and the Navy SEALs.
Dominic, are we expecting to hear stories of hostage taking at this point? Are you expecting that? I mean, I know we're not Middle Eastern experts, or at least I'll speak for myself. I am not an expert on the Middle East. But are we thinking that the Taliban now will hold American hostages? Because I've heard a lot about that. I mean, from Scott Walker to right-wing talk radio host, all I hear about is, let's not forget those Iranian hostages, the 400 plus days and the yellow ribbons we tied, in Scott Walker's case.
Oh, when Scott Walker and his hero, who was the guy? Oh, that's right. Ronald Reagan, who the guy who dealt with terrorists before he was the president.
Well, negotiated with terrorists before he was
dealt with terrorists before he was president. Yeah, I remember that guy.
Isn't that similar to how Donald Trump negotiated, at least through his Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, with the Taliban? And I find it quite interesting. You can only have it. I know Republicans like to have it all ways down, but you can only have it one of two ways. Either the Taliban are trustworthy partners, What would Reagan do? He would verify, but either
Trust
they
but
are
verify.
trust but verify, but either they are trustworthy partners that you made a deal with, the last president did, Donald Trump, or they were never trustworthy dance partners, and you never should have made the deal the last time. So judging them by their most recent actions, Tom, at least in regards to the American citizens escorted to the airport, I would say in the very short run, the Taliban probably has a better track record than the American Taliban.
The Trump terrorists. Listen, I mean, anytime you have American citizens in a foreign hostile country, I think you have to assume that that's always a possibility, a hostage taking or the killing of American citizens. Certainly, that is a concern. And politically speaking, I understand the conservatives' point that they're highlighting it. I'm sure they're not rooting for it, but that is a danger. And ultimately, we won't know until it happens. So hopefully, as you mentioned, the most immediate trends in working with the Taliban, apparently they could have not agreed and they could have waxed every single one of those citizens were they inclined to do so. They did not. So that if anything is a good sign.
Is American Taliban appropriate, or should I more accurately call them the Trump Taliban?
Yeah, I would.
What's your
Trump.
preference?
I prefer the Trump Taliban. That'd be great. I don't want to, disparage all Americans, just those who support the Trump terrorists.
Folks, we are the devil's advocates awaiting the president of the United States to address the end of the war in Afghanistan. It's only been 20 plus years. I congratulate the man for having the courage to go out there. I mean, this has obviously been a chaotic end, as everyone, would have expected. I know there are some Monday morning quarterbacks that had super secret plans that they would have pulled off.
Sure. Yes.
Executed as well as, let's say, Trump handled the pandemic here in the United States, the 600,000 dead. And
but that was a victory for Trump because it wasn't 6 million dead. See how that works?
Come back with us. President Joe Biden addresses the nation very soon. More devils.
Here's today's STEM tip. Make your selfies look even better with science. Take your pics at golden hour right before the sun sets. The wavelengths made by the atmosphere create a perfect golden light for that beautiful face of yours. Learn more at Chic and STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that Smokey's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when there are parched or windy conditions out there, you gotta be extra careful with things like burning yard waste. After all, wildfires can start anywhere, even in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I'm not down for voter suppression in my state.
No, right. This. It's got to be easy. It was great to have these options. We should have these options. We should have days off for people to go vote. We should expand the availability, the ease of our own citizens in this country to participate in self-governance. Republicans, why are you so opposed to that?
Because they lose those elections.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
62% of the time, they're right every time. Dom and Cruz are the devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. If you've not yet downloaded the Devil Radio app, go to your app store, search for Devil Radio, and take us with you everywhere you go.
Dominic, we're expecting the president, Joe Biden, to address the nation on the end of the Afghanistan war. You know, we've been there, so it's the U.S. war in Afghanistan, you know, because we always make ourselves first in these matters.
Well, wasn't he supposed to address this starting? I think the agenda said what? 1:45 Central Time.
Oh, is this a shocker to you that Joe Biden's not making his time cues?
What is this, Axl Rose, man? I mean, come on.
Well,
let's get the show on the road, baby.
For our affiliates listening all along the Devil's Advocates radio network, be aware, please, that once Joe Biden does begin talking, we'll go right through the commercial breaks. We're going to play the entirety of his speech once he begins. And come on, Dom, you know, it's a 2:00 speech. He's not addressing the nation at dinner time or at 7:00 or 8:00 Central, right? If he wanted the American people to watch this speech live, he'd do it during prime time. I mean, this is radio prime time, so we're going to play it for you live. But radio prime time is daytime. People are working during the day. They often take us with, you know, they're streaming on that fine Devil Radio app you mentioned, Dom, but this is more about the 5:00 news, the 6:00 news, the 10:00 news. These are the sound bites that the Biden administration want out there, you know, let's say for the sake of history. And it's less important, Dominic's agenda and timelines, you know, because you've got a little notoriety being late yourself.
Oh, come on, man. 10 years on the radio. I think I was late once. Now, before that, I certainly had Dominic time. I'll acknowledge that.
Now, once late on the radio, and really it was for no good reason. You were in the building. You were just BSing with some sales guy in the bullpen, right? And just forgot you had a radio show. I see how you are.
Oh, come on. And I was just letting everyone know what the conversation was going to be today on the show, and then I lost track of time. So, yes, when Joe steps up, we will step up and bring you that sound. Crudy, I sent you over a piece, cbsnews.com. Again, this is some of the concerns we've been hearing from the Republicans, and I think legitimately from other Americans as well. Reporting is Catherine Watson. No American citizens made it out on the last 5 flights out of Kabul, General Frank McKenzie said Monday, noting that although we continued our outreach, none of them made it to the airport in the final hours of the U.S. presence in Kabul. The administration doesn't know exactly how many Americans remain. We still believe there are still a small number of Americans, under 200 and likely closer to 100, who remain in Afghanistan and want to leave. We're trying to determine exactly how many, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Monday. U.S. military forces oversaw the evacuation of about 6,000 Americans in recent weeks. We've known that. With the troops gone, we'll have to use other channels. Quote, the diplomatic sequel to that will now begin, McKenzie said on Monday. And I believe our Department of State is going to work very hard to allow any American citizens that are left, and we think the citizens that were not brought out, number remains low, very low hundreds. I believe we're going to be able to get those people out. He added, I think we're also going to negotiate very hard, very aggressively to get our other Afghan partners out. The military phase is over, but our desire to bring these people out remains as intense as it was before.
Well, Biden's going to be vilified until every American that wants out gets out, Dom. And maybe rightly so. I mean, I'm still not clear why it was that this became such a chaotic exit. And I realized the Taliban, they went on the march, and it happened much more rapidly than even the Biden administration admitted. But it seems like there could have been a slow rollout of Afghanistan that could have begun. You know, this was in the works. Hell, Trump negotiated most of this withdrawal plan a year ago, right?
Right.
So why weren't they withdrawing?
And
why weren't they getting out? And also the armaments, not just the ones that were earmarked for the Afghanis that had fallen apparently into Taliban hands, but you know, some of this stuff, when you hear about C-130s being left behind, those are airplanes. You could fly those out.
No doubt. You absolutely could fly this out, presuming that they weren't, scrapped or used for other things. And I'm not clear. Those are all valid questions that, time will tell. But I am very curious if we're talking about 100 to up to 200, low hundreds of American citizens. Who are these people? Are they,
tourists?
Aids? Are they providing some sort of aid? Are there some NGO groups? Are they military contractors? Who are the people that are still there that are trying to get out? I think that is a question I would like to know the answer to, because I would probably have a different attitude. And while I want all our citizens, anyone that wants to leave should be able to get out. But if you're a military contractor, you signed up for that and your crew didn't get you out, or if you're an aid giver, I look at those in two separate kind of things. While both perhaps American citizens, the priority on those who are not actually involved in the fight, perhaps in some aid work, perhaps in humanitarian work, perhaps in State Department work, those kinds of things, I see as different as versus a military contractor.
844-967-2789. We'll take calls perhaps after the Biden speech. We are expecting the president to address the nation, and we now see the hallway, the long hallway. They've opened the doors, and that's usually where the president comes walking down the long hallway. Dominic, I believe this is the same setting that Barack Obama used when he announced the death of Osama bin Laden. We'll anticipate taking our break here, but I suspect we may break away momentarily because President Joe Biden appears ready to take the podium and address the nation. As soon as he does, we'll take it live and we'll keep it here until the end of Joe Biden's speech. More Devil's Advocates on the other side. Eventually, your phone calls at 844-967-2789. The end of the Afghanistan War. Joe Biden addresses the nation next.
Longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. That number is more than double what most experts thought were possible. No nation has ever done anything like it in all of history. Only the United States had the capacity and the will and ability to do it, and we did it today. The extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals. For weeks, they risked their lives to get American citizens, Afghans who helped us, citizens of our allies and partners and others on board planes and out of the country. And they did it facing a crush of enormous crowds seeking to leave the country. And they did it knowing ISIS-K terrorists, sworn enemies of the Taliban, were lurking in the midst of those crowds. And still, the women and men of the United States military, our diplomatic corps, and intelligence professionals did their job and did it well, risking their lives, not for professional gains, but to serve others, not in a mission of war, but in a mission of mercy. 20 service members were wounded in the service of this mission. 13 heroes gave their lives. I was just at Dover Air Force Base for the dignified transfer. We owe them and their families a debt of gratitude we can never repay, but we should never, ever, ever forget. In April, I made a decision to end this war. As part of that decision, we set the date of August 31st for American troops to withdraw. The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban. That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate. But I still instructed our national security team to prepare for every eventuality, even that one. And that's what we did. So we were ready when the Afghan security forces, after 2 decades of fighting for their country and losing thousands of their own, did not hold on as long as anyone expected. We were ready when they, the people of Afghanistan, watched their own government collapse and the president flee amid the corruption and malfeasance, handing over the country to their enemy, the Taliban, and significantly increasing the risk to U.S. personnel and our allies. As a result, to safely extract American citizens before August 31st, as well as embassy personnel, allies and partners, and those Afghans who had worked with us and fought alongside of us for 20 years, I had authorized 6,000 troops, American troops, to Kabul to help secure the airport. As General McKenzie said, this is the way the mission was designed. It was designed to operate under severe stress and attack, and that's what it did. Since March, we reached out 19 times to Americans in Afghanistan with multiple warnings and offers to help them leave Afghanistan, all the way back as far as March. After we started the evacuation 17 days ago, we did initial outreach and analysis and identified around 5,000 Americans who had decided earlier to stay in Afghanistan, but now wanted to leave. Our Operation Allied Rescue ended up getting more than 5,500 Americans out. We got out thousands of citizens and diplomats from those countries that went into Afghanistan with us to get bin Laden. We got out locally employed staff in the United States Embassy and their families, totaling roughly 2,500 people. We got thousands of Afghan translators and interpreters and others who supported the United States out as well. Now we believe that about 100 to 200 Americans remain in Afghanistan with some intention to leave. Most of those who remain are dual citizens, longtime residents who had earlier decided to stay because of their family roots in Afghanistan. The bottom line, 90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out. Secretary of State Blinken is leading the continued diplomatic efforts to ensure safe passage for any American, Afghan partner, or foreign national who wants to leave Afghanistan. In fact, just yesterday, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution that sent a clear message about what the international community expects the Taliban to deliver on moving forward, notably freedom of travel, freedom to leave. And together, we are joined by over 100 countries that are determined to make sure the Taliban upholds those commitments. It will include ongoing efforts in Afghanistan to reopen the airport, as well as overland routes, allowing for continued departure to those who want to leave and deliver humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. The Taliban has made public commitments, broadcast on television and radio across Afghanistan, on safe passage for anyone wanting to leave, including those who worked alongside Americans. We don't take them by their word alone, but by their actions. And we have leverage to make sure those commitments are met. Let me be clear. Leaving August the 31st is not due to an arbitrary deadline. It was designed to save American lives. My predecessor, the former president, signed an agreement with the Taliban to remove U.S. troops by May the 1st, just months after I was inaugurated. It included no requirement that Taliban work out a cooperative governing arrangement with the Afghan government, but it did authorize the release of 5,000 prisoners last year, including some of the Taliban's top war commanders, among those who just took control of Afghanistan. By the time I came to office, the Taliban was in its strongest military position since 2001, controlling or contesting nearly half of the country. The previous administration's agreement said that if we stuck to the May 1st deadline that they had signed on to leave by, the Taliban wouldn't attack any American forces. But if we stayed, all bets were off. So we were left with a simple decision. Either follow through on the commitment made by the last administration and leave Afghanistan, or say we weren't leaving and commit another tens of thousands more troops going back to war. That was the choice, the real choice, between leaving or escalating. I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit. The decision to end the military airlift operations at Kabul airport was based on the unanimous recommendation of my civilian and military advisors, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and all the service chiefs, and the commanders in the field. Their recommendation was that the safest way to secure the passage of the remaining Americans and others out of the country was not to continue with 6,000 troops on the ground in harm's way in Kabul, but rather to get them out through non-military means. In the 17 days that we operated in Kabul, after the Taliban seized power, we engaged in an around-the-clock effort to provide every American the opportunity to leave. Our State Department was working 24/7, contacting and talking, and in some cases, walking Americans into the airport. Again, more than 5,500 Americans were airlifted out. And for those who remain, we will make arrangements to get them out if they so choose. As for the Afghans, we and our partners have airlifted 100,000 of them. No country in history has done more to airlift out the residents of another country than we have done. We will continue to work to help more people leave the country who are at risk. We're far from done. For now, I urge all Americans to join me in grateful prayer for our troops and diplomats and intelligence officers who carried out this mission of mercy in Kabul and at tremendous risk with such unparalleled results. An airlift that evacuated tens of thousands, to a network of volunteers and veterans who helped identify those needing evacuation, guide them to the airport, and provided them for their support along the way. We're going to continue to need their help. We need your help, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you. And to everyone who is now offering or who will offer to welcome Afghan allies to their homes around the world, including in America, we thank you. I take responsibility for the decision. Now, some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is There is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None. There are those who would say we should have stayed indefinitely for years on end. They ask, why don't we just keep doing what we were doing? Why do we have to change anything? The fact is, everything had changed. My predecessor had made a deal with the Taliban. When I came into office, we faced a deadline, May 1. The Taliban onslaught was coming. We faced one of two choices: follow the agreement of the previous administration and extend to have more time for people to get out, or send in thousands of more troops and escalate the war. To those asking for a third decade of war in Afghanistan, I ask, what is the vital national interest? In my view, we only have one: to make sure Afghanistan can never be used again to launch an attack on our homeland. Remember why we went to Afghanistan in the first place? Because we were attacked by Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda on September 11th, 2001. And they were based in Afghanistan. We delivered justice to bin Laden on May 2nd, 2011, over a decade ago. Al Qaeda was decimated. I respectfully suggest you ask yourself this question. If we'd been attacked on September 11, 2001 from Yemen instead of Afghanistan, would we have ever gone to war in Afghanistan? Even though the Taliban controlled Afghanistan in the year 2001? I believe the honest answer is no. That's because we had no vital interest in Afghanistan other than to prevent an attack on America's homeland and our friends. And that's true today. We succeeded in what we set out to do in Afghanistan over a decade ago. Then we stayed for another decade. It was time to end this war. This is a new world. The terror threat has metastasized across the world, well beyond Afghanistan. We face threats from al-Shabaab in Somalia, al-Qaeda affiliates in Syria and the Arabian Peninsula, and ISIS attempting to create a caliphate in Syria and Iraq and establishing affiliates across Africa and Asia. The fundamental obligation of a president, in my opinion, is to defend and protect America, not against threats of 2001, but against the threats of 2021 and tomorrow. That is the guiding principle behind my decisions about Afghanistan. I simply do not believe that the safety and security of America is enhanced by continuing to deploy thousands of American troops and spending billions of dollars a year in Afghanistan. But I also know that the threat from terrorism continues in its pernicious and evil nature. But it's changed, expanded to other countries. Our strategy has to change too. We will maintain the fight against terrorism in Afghanistan and other countries. We just don't need to fight a ground war to do it. We have what's called over-the-horizon capabilities, which means we can strike terrorists and targets without American boots on the ground, or very few if needed. We've shown that capacity just in the last week. We struck ISIS-K remotely, days after they murdered 13 of our service members and dozens of innocent Afghans. And to ISIS-K, we are not done with you yet. As Commander-in-Chief, I firmly believe the best path to guard our safety and our security lies in a tough, unforgiving, targeted, precise strategy that goes after terror where it is today, not where it was 2 decades ago. That's what's in our national interest. And here's the critical thing to understand. The world is changing. We're engaged in a serious competition with China. We're dealing with the challenges on multiple fronts with Russia. We're confronted with cyber attacks and nuclear proliferation. We have to shore up America's competitiveness to meet these new challenges in the competition for the 21st century. We can do both. Fight terrorism and take on new threats that are here now and will continue to be here in the future. And there's nothing China or Russia would rather have, would want more in this competition in the United States to be bogged down another decade in Afghanistan. As we turn the page on the foreign policy that has guided our nation the last 2 decades, we've got to learn from our mistakes. To me, there are 2 that are paramount. First, we must set missions with clear, achievable goals, not ones we'll never reach. And second, we must stay clearly focused on the fundamental national security interest of the United States of America. This decision about Afghanistan is not just about Afghanistan. It's about ending an era of major military operations to remake other countries. We saw a mission of counterterrorism in Afghanistan, getting the terrorists and stopping attacks, morph into a counterinsurgency, nation building, trying to create a democratic, cohesive, and united Afghanistan, something that has never been done over many centuries of Afghan's history. Moving on from that mindset, and those kind of large-scale troop deployments will make us stronger and more effective and safer at home. And for anyone who gets the wrong idea, let me say clearly, to those who wish America harm, to those who engage in terrorism against us or our allies, know this: the United States will never rest. We will not forgive. We will not forget. We'll hunt you down to the ends of the earth, and you will pay the ultimate price. And let me be clear. We'll continue to support the Afghan people through diplomacy, international influence, and humanitarian aid. We'll continue to push for regional diplomacy and engagement to prevent violence and instability. We'll continue to speak out for the basic rights of the Afghan people, especially women and girls, as we speak out for women and girls all around the globe. And I've been clear that human rights will be the center of our foreign policy. But the way to do that is not through endless military deployments, but through diplomacy, economic tools, and rallying the rest of the world for support. My fellow Americans, the war in Afghanistan is now over. I'm the 4th president who has faced the issue of whether and when to end this war. When I was running for president, I made a commitment to the American people that I would end this war. Today, I've honored that commitment. It was time to be honest with the American people again. We no longer had a clear purpose in an open-ended mission in Afghanistan. After 20 years of war in Afghanistan, I refused to send another generation of America's sons and daughters to fight a war that should have ended long ago. After more than $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan, the cost that researchers at Brown University estimated would be over $300 million a day for 20 years in Afghanistan, for 2 decades. Yes, the American people should hear this: $300 million a day for 2 decades. If you take the number of 1 trillion, as many say, that's still $150 million a day for 2 decades. What have we lost as a consequence in terms of opportunities? I refuse to continue a war that was no longer in the service of the vital national interests of our people. And most of all, after 800,000 Americans serving in Afghanistan, I've traveled that whole country, brave and honorable service. After 20,744 American servicemen and women injured, and the loss of 2,461 American personnel, including 13 lives lost just this week, I refuse to open another decade of warfare in Afghanistan. We've been a nation too long at war. If you're 20 years old today, you've never known an America at peace. So when I hear that we could have, should have continued the so-called low-grade effort in Afghanistan at low risk to our service members, at low cost, I don't think enough people understand how much we have asked of the 1% of this country who put that uniform on, willing to put their lives on the line in defense of our nation. Maybe it's because my deceased son, Bo, served in Iraq for a full year. Before that, well, maybe it's because of what I've seen over the years as senator, vice president, and president traveling these countries. A lot of our veterans and their families have gone through hell. Deployment after deployment, months and years away from their families, missed birthdays, anniversaries, empty chairs at holidays, financial struggles, divorces, loss of limbs, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress. We see it in the struggles many have when they come home. We see it in the strain on their families and caregivers. We see it in the strain on their families when they're not there. We see it in the grief borne by their survivors. The cost of war, they will carry with them their whole lives. Most tragically, we see in the shocking and stunning statistic that should give pause to anyone who thinks war can ever be low grade, low risk, or low cost. 18 veterans on average who die by suicide every single day in America. Not in a far off place, but right here in America. There's nothing low grade or low risk or low cost about any war. It's time to end the war in Afghanistan. As we close 20 years of war and strife and pain and sacrifice, it's time to look to the future, not the past, to a future that's safer, to a future that's more secure, to a future that honors those who served and all those who gave what President Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion. I give you my word with all of my heart. I believe this is the right decision, a wise decision, and the best decision for America. Thank you. Thank you, and may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
That was President Joe Biden addressing the nation. The war is over. My fellow Americans, the Afghanistan war is over. What were your impressions of the speech, Tom?
Well, I think he adequately addressed some of the concerns of the remaining U.S. citizens. We talked about that a little before. That's still going to be an ongoing operation now through Blinken, the Secretary of State, and the State Department. And, you know, time will tell the success of that. Talking about the cost of war, as you kind of wrapped up, 18 veteran suicides per day in this country is just a terrifying statistic. And certainly the opportunity costs for this country and the money, just alone the money spent, depending on what number you look at, $150 million to $300 million a day At some point
for 20 years.
For 20 years, it's got to go. And in pointing out the very specific real history of the former administration and the deal in which they struck with the Taliban, and he mentioned, and we've talked about it, I think it was worth reiterating once again. At that point, you really have two options. You can escalate or you can leave. And I still stand by the belief that he did the right thing.
Now, Biden described this withdrawal as a success. Is that a little bit of a bridge too far? Can you call this a successful withdrawal?
Given the statistics, 160,000 people, is that right? I don't want to overstate that. Maybe 116,000, and 5,000-6,000 Americans, and maybe 100 to 200 still left to get out. If it were not for the deaths of those service members in the past week, perhaps more successful, but certainly a huge undertaking. And if the gauge of success is an actual withdrawal, then yes, we've done that.
Any blame to be cast upon Joe Biden for the terrorist act, the 13 dead service people, 170 others dead at the Kabul airport. The U.S. State Department obviously had some sort of intelligence. They were telling people don't gather at the airport that day. But does this also, is that blood on Joe's hands? Because the decision was made by the current president. Anything that goes wrong, what did he say earlier? Not today, but earlier. The buck stops here.
He is the commander in chief when those service members died. And there were other presidents who are in charge when other service members died. That is the cost of war. So if there's blood, certainly, yes, I'll put it on. He's the commander in chief. The buck stops with him. That is his responsibility. But he's not the only one. Republicans and Democrats over 4 different presidencies, and the American people, we need to look at ourselves in this as well.
Set missions with clear, achievable goals and do what's in the national interest, the national security interest, not just what's good for Halliburton stock price. $150 to $300 million a day for 20 years. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of treasury to flush down Afghanistan. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Hour 2 is next.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
This is Rocker. I'm sitting on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies on East Wash, and I'm enjoying a floral-forward Manhattan called As Long as There's Whiskey. It features Rocker Rye whiskey with a hint of blueberry, a touch of smoky Amaro, and it's finished off with St. Germain. It's a Rocker Rye Manhattan at Sal's Tomato Pies on Livingston. Ask for it by name, As Long as There's Whiskey. You can also enjoy Rocker Spirits at the Wisco and Tiny's Tap on Willie Street. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Make some room on your home screen for the greatest radio app ever. Check out the Devil Radio app in the Apple and Google Play stores today and stream the greatest radio station ever wherever you go. The Devil Radio app, streaming 24/7 right from your smartphone.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at devilradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden says there was chaos in Afghanistan leading up to the end of the U.S. mission there.
The women and men of the United States military, our diplomatic corps, and intelligence professionals did their job and did it well.
At the White House, the president says this was the way the mission was supposed to be carried out.
Since March, we reached out 19 times to Americans in Afghanistan with multiple warnings and offers to help them leave Afghanistan, all the way back as far as March.
The president says the U.S. will get the remaining Americans still there out of Afghanistan if they want to get out.
I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit.
Illinois Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller says this was a botched pullout.
We all know that another 911 is coming. Our allies don't respect us and our enemies don't fear us. We are in a terrible position worldwide.
In many places along the Gulf Coast, because of Hurricane Ida, there's no power, no water, no gasoline. FEMA's Deanne Criswell credits first responders.
They work so hard to make sure that they're keeping their communities safe, and many of them at the same time struggling with their own losses to their own homes.
Mike Richards is out of another job. He stepped down from hosting TV's Jeopardy after the death of Alex Trebek.
He loved this show and everything it stood for.
He made some comments demeaning to women. Now Richards is out as executive producer of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Sony Pictures Television cited internal difficulties. A huge firefighting force is gathered to defend Lake Tahoe from a raging wildfire. People in areas south have been evacuated near the California-Nevada border. Not much movement today. Stocks have been slightly lower before the closing bell. This is AP News.
Staples Connect has everything for back to school at amazing prices. Right now, Crayola 12-count colored pencils and 10+2 Crayola marker bonus packs and Bic Round Stick Ballpoint Pen 10 packs are just 97 cents each. So you won't just be ready for school, you'll be Prepared Parent of the Year ready.
I just want to thank my family and Staples for making this possible.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back to school today and get more than ready for school. Ends 9/18, limit 30 on Crayola. Bic pens in store only.
Hey y'all, this is your girl Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
At Chad's Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodeled home at a time. Simply stated, we want to be a part of the solution to leave the world better than we found it. That's why we've invested in a 20 kilowatt solar array, which provides over 90% of our electrical demand at our shop, office, and design studio. And that's why we invest in local causes which provide opportunities and which confront structural inequality. At Chad's Design Build, we are proud to partner with you, building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
So I've already guaranteed this will be my last term. I'm doing this because I want to solve these problems.
Was it problem solving when you blocked COVID relief or when you downplayed the insurrection?
I want to do it because I'm so concerned about the direction of this country. I've got something to offer.
Like becoming a hydroxychloroquine salesman?
I'll go home with a smile on my face, realizing I'd left it all in the field.
You must be exhausted.
I don't feel like my time here has been particularly successful.
Go home.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
I offer this guarantee to those that advertise with Devil Radio. You will not lose money. You will get return on your investment. I'm Mike Crude. I own Devil Radio. I know it's scary to spend money, but you must invest now in telling customers old and new that you're open for business. Devil Radio listeners are hugely supportive of our sponsors. Our creative team will help you craft your message until it works. We will keep running your ads until you tell me you're making money. Call Devil Radio today. We will succeed together. You will make money. I guarantee it. If you're in business, you need a phone. And if you're doing it right, you will need a phone system. If you own a managed IP phone system, you're
How you doing, Matt?
paying too much. You need to call Pyramid Telephone.
Doing well. You sound good.
In business since 1984.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Stamp. Pyramid offers service before and after the sale. Skip the corporate experience, the out-of-state or out-of-country technical support. Call Pyramid Telephone and Security at 608-273-9300. That's 608-273-9300.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. As the Delta variant of COVID-19 rages in Wisconsin, the state is again facing a nursing shortage. The shortage is leading some health systems in Wisconsin to offer $15,000 hiring bonuses and other systems posting needs for nearly 200 unfilled positions. Several wildlife advocacy organizations are expected to file a lawsuit in Dane County today in order to stop the gray wolf hunt scheduled for November in Wisconsin. The lawsuit contends the Natural Resources Board ignored the scientific recommendations when setting a quota nearly double the recommended by the DNR. Yesterday, Governor Tony Evers expressed criticism of a Republican authorization of taxpayer funds to spend at least $680,000 on reviewing last year's election, as well as what the governor referred to as dog whistle crap concerns raised by GOP lawmakers surrounding the Afghan refugee resettlement operation at Fort McCoy. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, the President of the United States, addressing the end of the war in Afghanistan, and plenty of people, they've got opinions. We'll get to the phones this hour, I assure you. 844-967-2789. But first, we welcome back a fine guest. He is a very good friend of ours. He is Matt Flynn. He's a political talker, the twice elected Democratic Party chair of the great state of Wisconsin, and he hosts the morning show right here on Devil Radio, 6 to 8 a.m. You should never miss it. Matt Flynn, welcome back.
Hey, Matt.
Good to be back. I was here 6 hours ago.
Oh, we appreciate you getting up from your nap to join us, Matt.
Were you wearing the same T-shirt then, or did you dress down more casual, Matt Flynn?
I like the casual Matt Flynn. Matt, the president speaking today, obviously you want to get your take on it. You've been a Biden guy from day one. What was your initial takeaway from Biden's speech?
Yeah, I watched the speech. You know, I'm a strong supporter of Joe, going back to the very first day he announced, and I still am. I will tell you, I thought that speech was a little defensive, quite frankly. I was looking for a speech, and he could have easily given it, that just emphasized American ascendancy, American exceptionalism, that we're a country with international obligations. And what he did was, it was almost as if we were sitting in a living room and he was responding to criticisms, and that's fine. I mean, you know, and we know the responses. But I think that as the days go forward, he made the correct decision to get out of that war. We'd been there 20 years. It's too long. We didn't want to be there forever. But the fact is, the matter is, we could have destroyed that country if we wanted to. If we wanted to commit genocide, we're not going to do that. So we got people out. He did say we're going to continue to hit ISIS, and we will continue to hit anybody who commits terror against our country. But I think that he got too far into the weeds with describing what Trump had done, and, you know, all sorts of responses to criticism of him. And frankly, I think that a shorter speech, simply saying it's time to get out. We got out. We did what we had to do. We got rid of Al-Qaeda there. And if they pop their ugly head again, we're going to smash them again. You know, that kind of thing. But that was just because I know the guy. That's my subjective reaction.
Matt, and I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but, you know, a lot of people aren't into this political discussion that we do, you know, 5 days a week for hours at a time. You know, some folks kind of just tap in and touch and go. And for him to respond, to have at least, if nothing else, a sound bite for, as Curdy mentioned, the 5 or 6 o'clock news tonight, because some of those statements are going to very specifically rebut what the Republicans are certainly to come after him with.
Yeah, and there are political reasons for what he did, and he's much better at it than I am. I mean, he's been at it for 50 years. But I think the deal is, if you take Trump was nothing more than a glad handler. He told the Afghan government, get rid of 5,000 terrorists, Taliban and ISIS, so that I can look like I have a peace agreement. And then he was going to invite him to Camp David. Camp David, the Taliban, he cut out the Afghan government. He then went to Vienna, which is a historic place for these kinds of treaties. These people needed a bullet in the head, not going to Vienna. So they go to Vienna, and then he demoralized the Afghan government and demoralizes the Afghan military, many of whom fought very bravely. So yeah, Trump, yeah, we get it, but he was hired to clean up Trump's mess. Trump is a mess. He is a mess. He's a two-legged skunk. But the fact of the matter is, my guy was elected to clean up his mess. And I think, you can say that without being defensive.
Matt Flynn, Joe Biden expressed a change in tone for America. He talked about it being the end of an era, the end of nation building, and perhaps even ground wars. Well, we should perhaps negotiate at some point, rolling back the defense budget. But what about the end of an era? Do you think we're done nation building, Matt? Do you think we've learned this lesson?
No, three things, quote, three things on that. Number one, I don't think the defense budget should be cut. I think it should be increased. And I talked about that on my show this morning. The second thing is there are bad people all over the world, governments. People are not bad. The people of all countries are good people. Some governments, jihadists and communist governments, are bad. Now, what he's saying is we shouldn't have ground wars. When I was in the Navy, they were saying, we should not fight a ground war in Asia. Why? Because there's billions of people there and there ain't billions over here. But we have bombs, we have airplanes, we have ships. And the fact is that he slipped a slightly isolationist little, thing into the cocktail there. I know why he did it, but I think we're not isolationists. You can't nation build in a jihadist culture. You can't. The fact of the matter is they're committed to Sharia and jihad, and they won't do democracy, much less nation building. That he was correct. But the fact is, if we hadn't nation built in Europe after the Second World War, Russia would have had Austria. They would have had Austria, the Soviet Union. They would have had they would have stayed in East Germany. We absolutely are going to nation build in places you can do it, but you can't do it in Asia. And you can't do it in some of these countries that he's talking about. Now, he can't be specific like this. I'm real specific. Listen to Matt Flynn Direct, 6 to 8 in the morning.
Good little plug. Matt, the president did lay out some of the financials, and he did talk about the cost of this incursion in Afghanistan, and $150 to $300 million per day for 20 years, Matt. How could you possibly want more of the same and perhaps more of that?
No, I agree 100% getting out of Afghanistan. And some of that was stolen. There was fraud involved. And that was under the
Are we talking about American war contractors? Because they got paid, Matt. Trillions of dollars they got paid.
Right. But what happened is then they would hire subcontractors over there who were crooked. The subcontractor, one of them, left Afghanistan, bought villas in Europe for $20 million, didn't pay his employees, and they went in and stole $2 million of stuff from the base to pay themselves. The thing was badly run. But that, if I were I would have said it was very costly. But instead of nickel and diming like we're buying a rug or something, I would simply say this: we will pay any cost, Second World War, any cost where it has to be done. But come on, for the love of Pete. We're not bean counters here. This is statesmanship.
Nickel and dime at $300 million a day. That's a hell of a Persian.
Well, you pay down that much money. Don't give me that.
Folks are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Our pal and morning host, Matt Flynn, on the president's most recent speech here, talking about getting out of Afghanistan. The Americans left behind conversation, Matt. According to the president, they reached out, 19 times since March to the Americans to give them essentially a heads up. And with 17 days to go, about 5,000 people decided, we kind of want to go. Maybe they had, second thoughts after March once the Taliban rushed through and the Afghan army, put their arms down or sold their arms because they weren't getting paid either. What's your take? How do you think this will end up both practically as far as getting American citizens out and politically for the president?
Well, here's the deal. Of the ones that stayed there, virtually all of them were native Afghans who had dual citizenship or had green cards, and they had family there and they didn't want to leave. And then some of them realized at the end, we better leave. There's still about 150 of them, I think. They're not quite sure. And I think we'll continue to try to get them out. But the larger thing about how this is going to end up, the Taliban can't run a government. We have $11 billion in Afghan money in the Federal Reserve in New York, and we're not going to give it to the Taliban government. And the International Monetary Fund is not going to give them any money either. They're going around doing retribution killings right now, not in Kabul, but at Kandahar and Herat and the rest, where there aren't a lot of TV cameras. They are killing people who work with us. They are untrustworthy. They are untrustworthy. Their word is no good. So the fact is, somebody's going to have to run that country, and there's going to be a civil war over in that country. But our interest is going to be, if Al Qaeda and ISIS-K out of Pakistan get a toehold there, we're going to have to go in and bomb them. And that's the way we do it. But we shouldn't send in 100,000 troops like we did before.
Real quick before the break, Matt, and I hope you can stick around for the next segment as well. You talked about your wanting to increase the defense budget. Number one, I want to go there. Number two, nation building. Is there any nation left to be built? I mean, is there some rock somewhere I'm not aware of, Matt? Do you think that we should be somewhere else, or are we about done with all this?
You can't nation build in Asia or in parts of Africa that have jihadist governments. It simply isn't going to work.
Where's that leave?
Right. So what do we got left, man?
Yeah, well,
Greenland?
We had Austria, East Germany. We had Croatia. I mean, we have all of East Germany, Ukraine. I mean, right now the Russians are in Ukraine. The thing is, we're not going to go in and say, hey, we're going to nation build here. That's a misnomer. I think what we're saying is we are going to preserve countries that can survive and become democracies. That's what we really mean. But a lot of these countries can't survive as democracies.
Yeah, but that's what George W. was telling us 20 years ago was the rationale for staying in Afghanistan. I think even Barack Obama supported that notion in some way, shape, or form, because he had a surge, and that was over a decade ago.
Right. But George W. also lied and said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Well, George W. lied. Okay, so let's be blunt about it. And Obama got in there, and certainly foreign policy wasn't his long suit, to be very honest with you. Joe Biden opposed the surge. He opposed the surge. And the fact is that what we should have is the extermination of terrorists, but not by a lot of boots on the ground. You have some special forces, you have the CIA, and you have bombing. And the defense budget, 725 billion in the Senate. Now there's an instinct to put it up another 25 or 50 billion, get more ships for the Navy and more armaments. And I think that is a good idea.
Well, I respectfully disagree with you.
But the
good news is we're saving $350 million a day, or $300 million a day. That should be able to do a downstroke on a couple of boats, don't you think, Matt?
Come back with
the right station.
Or devil's advocates.
Yeah, that was wasted fraud.
Perhaps there are a few to the left of you, my friend. Come back, more Matt Flynn. He's our, I don't know, I don't want to call you a war hawk, man, but you're making me nervous. More devil's advocates, more Matt Flynn direct on the other side.
Taking your kids to their first baseball game. Getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed. Get the latest info about COVID-19 vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Pa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam, ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
the Devil's Advocates.
James Santel, he's a former U.S. attorney. He's our guest live on Brady.
Once again, a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen, to talk about the latest news breaking as we speak.
The FBI raided Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney. But once they got there, then they went back and got a more thorough warrant and said, we'll take everything.
My first reaction is you need to teach criminal constitutional law. You've got it just right in terms of the process.
They are kind of a big deal.
This is a really big deal.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Peace sells, but who's buying? But if you missed any of this fine program, please go online to devilradio927.com. You can listen to and download podcasts and interviews.
Dominic, we got a good friend, a fine guest. He stuck around. He is Matt Flynn. He does his own show, Matt Flynn Direct, right here on Devil Radio, 6 to 8 a.m. And I would like to point out, Matt served his country. He was a Navy man. You were on Old Ironsides, right, Matt?
Listen, I knew John Paul Jones. He was my commanding officer.
Matt, obviously this topic of Afghanistan, I think we all agree on this panel that it was the right choice, but the execution of the plan is certainly left Joe Biden open to a lot of criticism. And I don't know if it's all fair, but Matt, I remember when 9/11 happened, the American people, we rallied around our president. It was W, and I didn't even think he was a legitimate president, but we rallied around him. And perhaps those were naiver days, but Matt, there was no rallying around the president. There was no backing the president in his decision to end a war. I mean, between the left and the right, Joe Biden has been crucified on this one. Matt, do you think it's fair?
Well, all's fair in love and war. I mean, politics is worse than love and war. And so, do I think it's fair? No, but so what? I mean, in other words, the fact of the matter is, here's the difference between him and 9/11. And that is anytime a president launches a war, his approvals go up to 80 or 90%. Okay. So one of the reasons George W. Bush lied about Iraq was because gave him an excuse to invade a weak adversary, and he went up 70, 80%. He did. If Joe Biden right now sent 100,000 troops over there and bombed Kandahar, Herat, towns in Pakistan where the Taliban are hiding out, and killed a lot of people, he'd have an 80% approval rating. What he is doing the right thing. And that is, it's time to draw this down. My only point, I'm the Biden guy. Listen, during the campaign, I was Biden. Everybody call in, giving me.
Oh, I know, man.
Warren and what, Bernie Sanders. And, I mean, come on. It's a joke, right? I'm a Biden guy. But I'm just telling you, as his friend, I would say that he got in the weeds on defending certain things. And I think, he's a strong leader. And the thing is, it's time to get out. Could he have done it a little better? Yes, I absolutely think he could have done a little better. But is it fair when Trump lets 5,000 terrorists go who now lead the Taliban and invites them to Vienna and demoralize the Afghan government? No, it's not. So what? That and a buck will get you on the bus. What do I care? It's what is this? What do you mean by fair? This is politics. You know that.
Well, man, I voted for the socialist. But here's my question, Matt Flynn. How does Joe Biden turn the page? I mean, just the news cycle. It's time to move on from Afghanistan. The war's over. So How does Joe Biden move on? Because they don't want him to on Fox News.
Yeah, but they have a problem. Look, here's the deal. As each day goes on and this thing recedes in the past, he's the guy that got us out. People generally agree with that. They may not agree with how it was done, but as time goes on, they'll agree with it. The second thing is Fox and the rest of them are actually full of baloney. I mean, what are they defending Trump? What Trump did? Are they going to defend what? They're going to defend what DeSantis would do. These guys, these are the guys that recognize the Taliban and let 5,000 terrorists out of jail. They're going to defend that? They have very short memories. So no, and you can't beat somebody with nobody. If Biden runs again in 24, what Jamoke are they going to put up against him? What Palooka, which dwarf are they going to put up against him? DeSantis? Are they going to put up Cruz? Who do they got? They got nothing.
Donald Trump, baby. Trump 2024.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Yeah, that'd be great. He got beaten once. He's the guy that got rid of the terrorists. Big donors today announced they're not giving him any money because they know he's nuts and hopefully he'll be criminally indicted. If Merrick Garland had a spine, it's about time Merrick Garland showed a spine. It's about time that he started indicting people, and he hasn't done it so far, including Trump.
Listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Matt Flynn, for about another 3 minutes. Matt, the Republicans have short memories. I would say, well, they know exactly what Donald Trump did, but they're not reminding people. And I think one of the points that Biden did today that perhaps we touched on in the last segment, he's giving answers to some of those circumstances that Republicans aren't out there talking about on a regular basis. But you mentioned the corruption, and Biden brought up today, the president brought up today, the corruption and malfeasance of the Afghan government. And I guess my question, Matt, in engaging in this warfare, what kind of impact do you think that these contractors play as opposed to just having, regular GIs going up and doing the job? Does that allow for and give another opportunity for some of that corruption and malfeasance?
Yes, but there are two levels of contractors. One of the ones that provided, the food, built the housing for the Afghan government, trained them and all that. The other are some operatives who are actually on the ground with guns. GIs and Marines basically did the fighting along with the Afghan army. But somebody made a good point, and that is the Afghan government was going to fall, and the army, the minute our contractors got out. All of the training, all of that kind of stuff, all of the building and the housing, our contractors, there's one down in Texas, got a couple of $1 billion. They use subs. They use Afghan subs who are crooked, and many of them stole the money. It was not well supervised. I get all of that. But they were only going to survive as an army, an Afghan army, as long as our military and contractors were there. Anytime we got out, there's no infrastructure. There's no unity. They're all different tribes. They're all different warlords and so on. And we were there to wipe out Al-Qaeda. We did that a long time ago. We'll do it again, but this time let's do it with drones.
Matt, with that thought in mind, and we appreciate you coming around, Matt Flynn Direct. But with that thought in mind, what nation do you think the United States should invade next?
I think we should defend Ukraine, quite frankly. And the Ruskies are about a third of the way in. We shouldn't send troops there. We should squeeze them. Cut out their international borrowing. That's what we should do with the Ruskies.
My understanding is Ukraine will be offered $60 million in military aid. But first, they're going to have to do Joe a favor, though. Matt Flynn Direct. Catch him mornings right here on Devil Radio, 6 to 8 a.m. You're going to want to hear them. Now come back. More Devil's Advocates. The phone lines there jammed. We're going to get to your opinions next. Stick around. More of the greatest radio show ever next to Matt Flynn Direct.
Thanks, Matt.
This is the radio station you were looking for. Devil Radio 92.7. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the world together.
Help me, Devil Radio. You're my only hope.
You feeling stressed or anxious, trying to figure out this new world? Maybe just feeling sore after all that summer yard work? Just come try Knuckleheads. With a new location at 520 State Street, Knuckleheads has the best CBD and wellness products Madison has to offer. Come talk to a friendly neighborhood Knucklehead today and see if CBD works for you. You can call the shop at 608-284-0151 or check out the website, knuckleheadcbd.com, with any questions. And I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there at our new location, 520 State Street. Yeah!
This is Rocker. I'm sitting on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies on East Wash, and I'm enjoying a floral-forward Manhattan called As Long as There's Whiskey. It features Rocker Rye whiskey with a hint of blueberry, a touch of smoky Amaro, and it's finished off with St. Germain. It's a Rocker Rye Manhattan at Sal's Tomato Pies on Livingston. Ask for it by name, As Long as There's Whiskey. You can also enjoy Rocker Spirits at the Wisco and Tiny's Tap on Willie Street. You must be 21. Please drink.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished lower. The Dow down 39 points. Idaho Governor Brad Little is calling in 220 medical workers and mobilizing 150 Idaho National Guard soldiers to deal with the surge in unvaccinated coronavirus patients overwhelming the state's hospitals. President Biden says he was not going to extend a forever war in Afghanistan, and he was not going to extend a forever exit.
To those asking for a third decade of war in Afghanistan, I ask, what is the vital national interest? In my view, we only have one: to make sure Afghanistan can never be used again to launch an attack on our homeland.
At the White House, the president called the evacuation efforts an extraordinary success in Afghanistan, but more than 100 Americans and thousands of Afghans who are still looking to leave are still there. Today was the deadline to get out of Afghanistan. I'm Ed Dahl.
Staples Connect has everything for back to school at amazing prices. Right now, Crayola 12-count colored pencils and 10+2 Crayola marker bonus packs and Bic Round Stick Ballpoint Pen 10 packs are just 97 cents each. So you won't just be ready for school, you'll be Prepared Parent of the Year ready.
I just want to thank my family and Staples for making this possible.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back to school today and get more than ready for school. Ends 9/18, limit 30 on Crayola. Big pens in store only.
Hey, y'all, this is your girl, Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Yesterday, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported the chair of the Wisconsin Natural Resources Board, Frederick Prent, who refuses to step down from his position despite his term expiring on May 1st, consulted with Republican lawmakers, lobbyists with Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, and environmentalist groups about not leaving his position. In emails obtained by the Journal-Sentinel, Prent solicited advice from aides in the offices of Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu, U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany, as well as lobbyists back in May. On the record in June, Prent told reporters he had not heard from state lawmakers about retaining his seat beyond the term expiring. Partly cloudy skies in the forecast today, turning to overcast skies this afternoon. Winds up to 10 miles an hour and a high today of 79 degrees. Clear skies expected this evening with an overnight low of 56 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, political commentary from the back of the class.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I want to thank our most recent guest, a good friend of ours, Matt Flynn. From Matt Flynn Direct, you can catch him on Devil Radio, 6 to 8 a.m. each weekday morning. And I got to tell you, Dom is a former Army medic. Never trust a Navy guy. 844-967-2789. Got lots of callers. We're going to take them in the order they dialed us. Peter from Merton, you're first. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
Hey, Peter.
As a Marine, don't trust the Army or a Navy guy. Anyway.
I thought the Marines and the Navy were associated service branches. I thought none of you guys, as long as we could all agree, never trust the Coast Guard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we can listen to Biden before, because it's so refreshing to hear someone who can talk intelligently. And even if he goes over things and you actually understand what the guy is saying and the details and so forth. And I lost it yesterday. I got into it with a conservative friend who I go to lunch with once a month, and he was all over Biden and liberals for being soft, because that's all the chaos in Afghanistan and the way we're evacuating. And it was like the conservatives are rooting for ISIS against our soldiers and Marines. And 13 people were killed, but they were killed by a suicide bomber, not by Biden or our American military. And it just galled me.
No, absolutely.
I just wanted to get that off my chest there. And a shout out to Steve, who I got off track yesterday. Get vaccinated. We've had vaccinations from April. You're running the risk. 4 talk show hosts, right-wingers, have died. I don't understand why none of the Wisconsin right-wing talk shows haven't died yet, but it's probably because they're vaccinated. So,
well, Vicky claims she's not, Peter. Vicky claims she's not. I asked her, what if you're wrong? Well, I guess that's a risk she's willing to take. Peter, we got lots of callers. I appreciate yours. We're going to keep moving down the phones at 844-967-2789. And one quick note, I pulled it up. I Googled it. COVID deaths in the United States yesterday, August 30th of 2021. And I maybe threw out an inflated Florida figure earlier this week that had apparently come down in one day, but reflected multiple days of COVID deaths. But let's look at the nation. 1,725 people died yesterday from COVID-19.
In one day.
But we're going to crucify Joe Biden for the 13 deaths at the hands of a terrorist, that happened earlier during the evacuation during the end of the Afghanistan War.
Right. As the current president, fulfills, the terms of the last president's deal in trying to do this. I mean, it's, again, he's the president. He is the commander in chief. It's on his watch. But certainly, you have to put things in perspective as well. Still the right decision to leave, because your only other option was to escalate. And if you can't tell me why we would possibly escalate, then we need to get the hell out.
Dominic, do you think righties think that 600,000, perhaps 700,000 COVID deaths, do you think they're just as bad as those service people that died at Benghazi? I mean, there were 4 of them, and it was on Hillary Clinton's watch.
I think there's, different levels of people with regards to their opposition to getting the vaccine and masking and all those kinds of things. I think there's still those folks who are out there who think it's still kind of a hoax. I think those people still exist. And I think when you take that mentality and, this gusto of, never walk away from a fight, well, it combines with, I think, the perception, as our last caller pointed out, that this almost seems like they're rooting for the Taliban or ISIS because they're so caught up in the political back and forth that we have going on right now.
The enemy of my enemy
is my enemy.
844-967-2789. LA Tom, you're next. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Hi, Tom.
Hey guys. Hey, first off, we the people are the government, and we must never forget that. And Republic Foxcons are horrible for business. I thought Joe Biden was brilliant. I thought he showed leadership. I thought when you look at, it's just night and day compared to what we had before. He ended this stupid war that we should have never been in the first place. Again, our corporate media out there never showed the number of people that were out in the streets that were actually protesting this war when it first began, because they actually make money off of the war as well. But yeah, no, I thought Joe Biden was excellent. The only thing I wish he would have done, and I pretty much disagree, of course, with everything Matt Flynn said, except for maybe a couple things. But what I wish Joe would have said is I wish he would have said when he got into that $125 million or whatever, per day, that he would have said, he would have maybe pivoted and said, and we could be spending that money, your taxpayer money, right here on us in the United States. And if he would have gone into what $125 million a day could do for our own country, and actually, give us the things that he could have probably gotten into the whole infrastructure deal and a little bit more of the domestic agenda by pivoting and saying, okay, we're done with these forever wars.
Tom, I'm going to cut you short there. I didn't think it was the venue for that. I mean, it was bad enough. I agreed with Matt Flynn in this regard. It was too long a speech. It could have been more abbreviated, to my opinion. The shorter the speech, the more impactful, I think, at times. And the $150 to $300 million a day figure, I mean, what is that? 1.5 billion a week? Could we have found something else to expend $1.5 billion
a year? $110 billion a year.
Per year.
Per year.
Well, that's starting to add up to a big number, to my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree in perhaps a passing reference, but again, at the venue and the topic, probably not the best time to get into what he would do with the money. The fact that he even brought it up, I thought was important.
Well, I was only really cutting time short because we got lots of callers. 844-967-2789. Joe from Stevens Point, you're next, sir. What do you got for us?
Hello, Joe.
Greetings, fellas. I love Matt Flynn, but his politics I find it so disturbing sometimes. But I digress. The thing Biden just needs to do is, I still don't think anything is going to turn on foreign policy. This is an inoculator that you just say every time I hear like fainting spells over 14 people dying from a suicide bomber. We can't lose sight of that. You can't walk around and inspect everybody's backpack. That's a natural byproduct of that environment, of which, by the way, I didn't hear anybody freaking out about what the Afghanistan papers said. That whole thing was like, I don't know, what is it, 600 pages of incompetence? That's how 14 people get killed, okay? Here's Joe Biden's inoculator. $3 trillion, 20-year blood, sweat, tears, emotional investment, 300,000 soldiers allegedly trained, probably by Trump University professors or something.
Well, Eric Prince had a hand in it, I suspect, as well, but please continue, Joe.
But that is the inoculator, because when he comes back home, and this is where I hope the pivot goes to in terms of strategy, because right now, again, I don't think anything's going to turn on foreign policy, but what I do believe is that it inoculates him from $3 trillion of wasteful money and the panic attack that conservatives always get about Bidenflation. You know what? That, when we start talking about taking a look at budgets and taking a look at how we're going to do it, and with just reminding people what the Afghanistan papers meant and the cost of that and the idiocy of that. And by the way, we need to come back home and pivot to, here's the next thing. And Joe Biden will be out the door, and we're all going to be Republicans. You mark my words.
I don't understand the last part. Quickly, Joe, explain what the hell you're talking about.
I'll be quick, because if you don't get a hold of domestic politics with the COVID meltdown of our capitalistic system, people are hurting right now. Joe Biden needs to seriously go to war against the conservative Karen, anti-master, freak out at school board meetings. We've got to get a hold of that. And you know what? It's going to take some money. We got to get his agenda through there. But you know what? Here's the biggest one, and why I say we're all going to be Republicans. If we don't get a hold of that voter bill, the 400 bills that are cruising across this country right now, like, you're going to see, we will all be Republicans. I don't care what you want to talk about. Those are the guys who are going to be the big money ballers. And
Joe, I'm going to cut you short, man. Sorry, man. Lots of callers trying to get in here. I want to keep moving. Julie from Minneapolis, you're next. Welcome to the show. What do you got for us, Julie?
Hi, Julie.
Hi, if you can give me 30 seconds. Well, you're talking about money. I'd like to remind you guys, $2 trillion, 2017 tax cuts for the rich boys. It was about $2 trillion for the 20-year war when you consider everything, help the veterans when they return there and so forth. So what's a trillion here or a trillion there? I kind of, I believe that you can hold more than one idea in your head at the same time. And for me, yeah, I'm glad we got out, but there are things obviously that bother me. I heard a figure, and I was wondering what you boys thought of it. 330,000 Afghans that helped the Americans over the 20-year period. I hope that's wrong. I don't know if you gentlemen have heard anything different.
Well, Julie, we've heard a lot about 300,000 Afghanis trained. They were supposed to be the military. They were supposed to defend their own country. And the overall, the number of interpreters and others, I mean, if we've got to offload the entire Afghani army, we're going to have big problems. I'm going to be standing with a few of the Fox Newsers saying that's too much. But what I would say is there's definitely probably 30,000 people that worked directly with U.S. troops and had a trusted advisor role or an interpreter role. There's lots and lots of people of that sort, Julie. And I hope there is room in this nation for them. And I know that some are still struggling to get here. And I think that is to the fault of the Biden administration. Before the you-know-what hit the fan, the Biden administration could have been moving these allies to our nation quicker, or at least processing their visas, giving them an exit plan. I mean, I was watching this on 60 Minutes no more than 2 weeks ago before this blew up. Julie, appreciate your call. We're going to keep moving. 844-967-2789. Andy from Beaver Dam, you're next. Welcome.
Hey, Andy.
Well, I agree with what was previously said, and I'll keep it short so you can keep getting to go on air. Biden was handed a total pile of you-know-what. And, okay, maybe he ran it long. He was trying to make points. And every day you listen to right-wing talk radio, and they're saying, oh, Biden, God, he did this and did that. So I can understand where the 78-year-old guy is taking offense and fighting back about all the stuff that's been said about his handling it. I mean, there is no infallible guy that could handle it, and he's got twice as much knowledge about government than the previous two Republican presidents.
Well, Andy, the infallible guy is the former Republican president. You must not be reading the press releases.
He'll tell you. Just ask him. Thanks
he
for the
sent
call,
one
Andy.
out today. Make America great again. That was his press release. We'll come back. We'll take many more of your phone calls. Lots of people have opinions today. You're right to do so. President Joe Biden has addressed the nation. The end of the Afghanistan war. My fellow Americans, the Afghanistan war is over. It's the end of an era. Joe Biden claims we're done nation building. Well, we'll see. We're still expending something close to $1 trillion a year for a peacetime posture. That's our peacetime military budget. I don't know if I'm outraged at Joe Biden or his buddy Matt Flynn.
Maybe a little of both.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates, more phone calls, more of the greatness next.
Learning in person.
All right, everybody settle down. Find your place, please.
Getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed.
Listen, get your books out. We're going to start here with chapter
Get the
3.
latest info about COVID-19 vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
According to the Federalist Waller account being read into the congressional record by Ron Johnson, if this is just a small number of instigators and 100,000 true Trump-loving people, why did the Trumpsters stop the instigators? Why wouldn't you say, hey, they're not like us, let's stop those guys, instead of joining them and breaking into the U.S. Capitol?
I really believe I'd run into, even if I didn't have a weapon.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
I'm the king of rock. There is none higher. Sucker MCs should call me sire.
Aleppo. What is Aleppo? Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open 844-967-2789. Crudy, a little back of the napkin math at $300 million a day. That gives you about what, $109.5 billion annually. If you look at our defense budget, I think the 2022 budget request was $715 billion, which would account for 10% of all federal spending and nearly half of discretionary spending. So we just look at the 10% of the total federal spending is going to the defense budget. And of that, over 15% has been going to, based on that math of $300 million a day, 15% of the defense budget going towards Afghanistan. And if we're out of Afghanistan, that means we got some money to, put towards other priorities, perhaps.
Money to burn, if you will, Dom.
Making it rain, baby.
We've been doing that for 20 years. Yeah. Are we still fighting Charlie Wilson's war?
But can we, maybe if we spend some of that money around here, we'll actually get some, domestic returns instead of just padding the pockets of the military-industrial complex.
844-967-2789. Going back to the phones, Mark from Minnesota. Hopefully he's listening on AM 950. Mark, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Mark.
Hi, guys. We last spoke on Friday, and what I want to talk to you about is Henry Kissinger was quoted by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein as saying, military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy. And he was talking about us. And if anybody thinks, if that's what those people think about American soldiers, what do you think they care about people in the Middle East? Now, I'm looking at a headline here, and I'm going to agree with Matt. This goes back, if you were just worried about this 20 days ago, you're late to the party and you need to take a seat on the bench. This has been going on for 20 years. I'm looking at a Washington Post headline article, U.S. lied about Afghan war, documents reveal. That was from the Washington Post in 2019 and went in depth into the massive fraud and corruption that was known and understood. Now, our Justice Department recently arrested the last Nazi war criminal prison guard arrested in the United States was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The guy was 96 years old. George Bush should not be allowed to sit in his bathtub naked and paint pictures. He's a war criminal. And we need to go after these people. We just can't say, well, everybody knew we were lied into that war. Read the Washington Post article. Talk to John Sopko, the Inspector General for Afghanistan War, and the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse and corruption. And I just want to leave you with this if I can. In 2005, George W. Bush sent the chaplain from West Point, his name was Lieutenant Colonel David Westhusing, to investigate fraud and corruption in Iraq by the government contractors, not by the Army, but by our government contractors. This guy was a minister. He was married with 3 kids, and he went there to investigate it. As soon as he got there, he called his wife, and he said, I'm not going to make it out of here alive. This is incredible. And he ended up committing suicide, is the story, in his trailer. We need to look back at what Lieutenant Colonel David Westhusing investigated in 2005 that cost him his life when he was talking about fraud and corruption. And again, we just can't pass the buck and go to the next thing.
Mark, a lot to unpack, and that is a great phone call, man. But again, trying to get lots of people's opinions in here at 844-967-2789. Steve from Delafield. Steve, welcome back. What do you got for
Steve.
us?
Yes, Evan, Don, crew, thanks for taking my call again. Yeah, I just had 2 quick things I wanted to say is that how can Joe Biden claim that the U.S. war against Afghanistan is over when he said he reserves the right to bomb Afghanistan when he feels like it?
We got no troops on the ground. We've withdrawn our military operations. And quite frankly, as near as I can tell, Steve, every U.S. president reserves the right to bomb the you-know-what out of any country whenever they desire.
Yeah. Isn't that the definition of war?
And, no, it's not. It's a police action. I mean, in fact, it's not Congress applying it. Listen, I don't know what you're saying, Steve, but that's how the chief executive rolls, man. I mean, if you got troops on the ground, if you got boots on the ground, that's a ground war. If you do some drone strikes, that's not a war.
if you ask the people on the receiving end of those bombs, they will tell you that it's war.
No doubt, Steve.
And the second thing,
no doubt.
And the second thing I wanted to say was, warmongers like Matt Flynn are the reason why progressives and independents vote for Republicans. And that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Steve, did you get vaccinated between yesterday and today's call?
Yeah.
Go get vaccinated, Steve.
Come on, man. Go get vaccinated. We want to keep having these conversations, man. Hey, we appreciate it. 844-967-2789. Let's keep running down the list. Mark from the SAC, you are next. Welcome. What do you got today?
Yeah, well, if Steve get vaccinated and wear a mask, and hopefully it'll be a Luton mask, an American-made mask. That unfortunately, Biden got out of there, and things did not go perfectly. But let's remember the whole problem that was set up when Biden came in. Apparently, he didn't receive any briefings until just before he took office. I mean, we had Steve Miller, and they're sabotaging the vetting operation that should have been going on prior to Biden getting in. I mean, Trump should have been pulling people out of there all along there, since the time of the agreement. I mean, how are these things supposed to be perfect? Yes, Biden should have got things going quicker, but how many people did Trump leave behind, seeding behind little obstacles to success in this operation? Look at Wisconsin. We've got the DNR board secretary, refusing to leave.
Mark, you're getting a little off course there for now. Join us in the 4:00 happy hour, talk of Wisconsin, and a fine guest in John Nichols. But we want to get to at least one more caller this segment. CJ, I've seen you, man. Welcome back. What do you got for us?
Yeah, how you doing, guys?
Hey, CJ.
You guys and Matt only tell half the story. You're so good at that. The motto used to be no man or woman left behind.
Well, it was no man left behind because there were never women in a war zone, but go ahead, CJ.
It's under Biden, it's now, we didn't get everyone out. And you guys are okay with that. This president has cut and run, just like Obama did. We'll have to go back just because.
Where did Obama cut and run, CJ? Remind me.
They had to. Do you remember the surge that they had to send people back, the military back in to Iraq? That was called.
That was actually Afghanistan, CJ. The surge was in Afghanistan. That was over a decade ago. And 10 years later, you're still blaming the next two presidents later for the actions of George W. Bush. But please continue. You got 30.
Okay, Trump's conditional withdrawal was working. We left $85 billion worth of equipment behind.
Nope, that's false. You can check out the Washington Post, but thanks for the call, CJ.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. We got a fine guest coming next. He is John Nichols from The Nation. And we got some exciting news. Rebecca Clayfish, the former lieutenant governor under the wanker, she's inching forward to a gubernatorial run of her own.
Ooh.
She filed the paperwork. The announcement, it'll come next week, I suspect. More Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Chad's Design Build is proud to sponsor the Summer of Love on Devil Radio. We are committed.
Make some room on your home screen for the greatest radio app ever. Check out the Devil Radio app in the Apple and Google Play stores today and stream the greatest radio station ever wherever you go. The Devil Radio app, streaming 24/7 right from your smartphone.
This is Chad Spate. Are you thinking about improving or expanding your home? At Chad's Design Build, we're committed to making your home comfortable, healthy, attractive, durable, and sustainable. In fact, those commitments spell our name. And we deliver these services with our outstanding team of professionals who will respect you and your home. Visit our website at chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more about how we are building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
Stream Progressive News and Talk 24/7, as well as down.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden says this was the way the mission in Afghanistan was designed.
It was designed to operate under severe stress and attack.
And that's what it did. At the White House, the president called the evacuation an extraordinary success. There are still about 100 Americans and thousands of Afghans who want to get out. The bottom line, 90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out. The president said he was not going to extend a forever war in Afghanistan and was not going to extend a forever exit. Republicans like Louisiana's Clay Higgins in the House think the president should resign.
It's arguable that he's not of his whole and right mind. We are compassionate people, but we expect performance, and performance right now for President Biden calls for him to step down.
During the evacuation, there was a suicide bombing that killed 13 American service members and 169 Afghans. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards is getting a look at parts of his state hit hard by Hurricane Ida.
The damage that we have seen here and that they're dealing with is just catastrophic.
It's going to take weeks to get the power restored. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell is in Louisiana.
We understand many people are away from their homes and want to get back in their homes, but I strongly encourage everybody, please listen to your local officials. Please listen to when they tell you it's safe to come back home.
Ida is blamed for at least 4 deaths in Louisiana and Mississippi. People in South Lake Tahoe have been evacuated, and crews are working to keep the Caldor fire from reaching Lake Tahoe along the California-Nevada state line. Critical fire conditions are in place through tomorrow. The Dow finished down 39 points. This is AP News.
Staples Connect has everything for back to school at amazing prices. Right now, Crayola 12-count colored pencils and 10+2 Crayola marker bonus packs and Bic Round Stick Ballpoint Pen 10 packs are just 97 cents each. So you won't just be ready for school, you'll be Prepared Parent of the Year ready.
I just want to thank my family and Staples for making this possible.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back to school today and get more than ready for school. Ends 9/18, limit 30 on Crayola. Bic pens in store only.
Hey, y'all, this is your girl, Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
Do you need to hire? Let Devil Radio help your business find the right candidate with our Help Wanted half minutes. Devil Radio will create a 30-second job listing for your business, play it on Devil Radio for the month. We'll feature your job listing during Afternoon Drive on Fridays, and we'll even publish your Help Wanted listing on Devil Radio 927.com's website, all for just $300 per month. If you're hiring, Devil Radio can help. Call today.
Hey folks, Stephanie Miller here. As an enlightened progressive, you know how important it is to do business in accordance with your politics. That's why Solidarity Realty is my favorite real estate firm in Madison. Solidarity Realty is a local independent realty company that lives their values. They provide outstanding expertise and protect your best interests while building community and promoting sustainability and diversity. Viva la resistance! Find them today at solidarityrealty.com. And don't forget, tell them Stephanie Miller sent you.
Hi, this is Cody with Go Landscaping. We do full yard installs, retaining walls, and certified dry stone masonry. Let us turn your dream for an outdoor living space into a reality. Go Landscaping is still taking on new commercial and residential lawn care for this summer, or let us bid your snow removal for fall. Find us at golandscapings.com. Again, that's golandscapings.com.
When you're having computer problems, you need a company you trust to get things working again, quickly and affordably. Madison Computer Works has been doing that for business and residential customers for decades. Our computer care plans take away the hassle of being without your computer or needing to bring it in for repair. Starting at only $10 a month, our local and friendly techs provide remote help and can fix most problems in just minutes. Call 608-231-8000 and sign up today. Madison Computer Works, computers that work for you.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines.
On Monday, Governor Tony Evers announced he will be directing a combined $25 million of federal stimulus funds to Madison and Milwaukee for public transit services. The announcement comes after the Republican-authored budget cut transit funding for the state's two largest cities by 50% over the next 2 years. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services is reporting the Delta variant of COVID-19 has become the dominant strain of the virus in Wisconsin. 98.5% of samples tested by the Wisconsin State Laboratory of Hygiene in the week of August 9th and 100% of the samples tested by the lab in the week of August 16th have come back as the Delta variant. The University of Wisconsin-Madison will review the process of how the university handled requests by educators to teach online courses this semester after faculty groups expressed concerns for how disability and medical exceptions were being dismissed. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the Tuesday 4 o'clock happy hour. And I'm happy to announce we've been joined by a fine guest, a friend of ours. He's John Nichols with the Nation with the Cap Times. Now, joining us on the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. John, welcome back. How you doing, man?
Good to be with you, brother. How you doing?
Thank you, John. Good to be with you as well.
Well, fair to middling, John. It's my anniversary, and my wife heard me give her a little shout out on the air. So hopefully that will preempt the need for a gift.
Good luck with that.
Well, which anniversary is it?
19, John.
Well, yeah, it's an off year, but I'm going to say probably not. I think you might want to stop on the way home. You know?
I've got schemes in mind, John, but let's talk politics. You know, my
personal flowers are broadly available.
What's that, John? Flowers?
Flowers are broadly available.
I was thinking maybe some tickets to a fine live event later this week of the comedy sort, but we'll see. John Nichols, got to ask you about Afghanistan. It has dominated all the conversation, all the news. And obviously, we've got some of these Afghani refugees being moved right here to the great state of Wisconsin. Fort McCoy might be the location. And we got some very squeamish Republican Congress people. They're losing their mind, John. There's terrorists in our midst. First and foremost, should we be scared of the refugees, John?
Nope. I'm going to say that on balance, we should not be afraid of the refugees. I think that, look, this is something we've heard again and again throughout history. People coming from other places are, coming here to do us harm, right? That there's some kind of threat. The reality is that most history tells us that refugees come to this country for exactly the same reason that we would expect they would come. They come here because this is a place that they see as safe, with opportunities, and they want to be safe, and they want to have opportunities. And overwhelmingly, I think that the refugees who come to Wisconsin will be a tremendous benefit to this state. So I say welcome.
John, how do you think the broader populace will view the end of this war? Will it be to Joe Biden's detriment politically? Will we move on? Will a year from now it just Joe Biden ended the war? Or do you think a year from now we're going to see, reel after reel on Fox News as they try to clobber Joe with this topic for the midterms? Where do you think we are even a year from now on this topic, John?
Sure. Reel after reel on Fox News isn't going to change a lot of voters, right? I mean, by and large, the people who are watching Fox News are already committed. So it's reinforcing them and it gets them to turn out. And so I'll just ask you the simple question: how far did Benghazi get them?
Well, there was no President Hillary Clinton, so perhaps
That
a
is
mixed bag,
true.
John.
I mean, well, she won the popular vote.
Come on, man! I don't want to relitigate 2016. We can't even get done relitigating 2020, sir.
But I'll tell you a subtlety of congressional elections. Unlike the presidential election, they are decided by popular vote. And so as a result, if Democrats come out with substantially higher level of support, they're going to do. They by and large are going to win a lot of races. If they get lower support, they won't. That's unlike the presidential race. And so what I would suggest to you is this: that Republicans always have sort of a default position that they're going to go to, some foreign policy issue that they want to emphasize because they think that it will help them to prevail, especially in midterm elections. And the evidence is not as strong as you might think. I mean, you're right that in 2016, there may have been a few folks, I imagine, I suppose, who were influenced by Benghazi, but very little evidence that it had an impact in 2018, despite the fact that you'd had Republicans making a very big deal about it when they were in charge of the House, especially during that period from after the 2016 election. And so my sense is that Americans are pretty sensible about this stuff. They will look at it and say they are glad we're out of the war in Afghanistan. And polling data suggests that there's overwhelming enthusiasm for ending this war. That crosses lines, by the way, of partisanship and ideology. Secondly, I think most Americans, maybe there's a naive few who think that wars end pretty, right? That they can all just be wrapped up in a nice little box and everything settles out. But I think most Americans understand that the ends of wars tend to be messy and difficult. I've covered wars, and I can tell you, the playout is never as simple as the commentators or the talking heads on TV would have it be. And so my sense is that a year from now, most Americans will be glad that we're not in Afghanistan. And they will recognize that while it didn't end as pretty as some of the TV talking heads would imagine that it could or would want it to, that Biden actually got about, I guess, 120,000 people out during the period since July. And, a lot of pretty heroic stories of getting people, not just Americans out, but also people who had aided the Americans, many of whom will be resettled as refugees. And so if you put the two questions you've asked here together, you end up in an interesting situation. For the Republicans to prevail, they have to convince you that Biden didn't do enough to get refugees out and get people out of Afghanistan, but he did too much to bring all the people he got out to the U.S. That's a pretty complicated construct there. And my sense is the 2022 election is going to be about issues like healthcare, education, the kind of the basics of functioning America, perhaps even a lingering COVID crisis, rather than foreign policy.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. John Nichols, the national affairs correspondent with The Nation, also, of course, with the Cap Times. John, that won't stop the Republicans from trying. The president's speech today, pretty lengthy, went into some of the details of the circumstances of the previous administration. We had our pal Matt Flynn on earlier. His sense is that he thought the president was defensive in his speech today. I wanted to get your sense. What was your initial takeaway, John?
I think he has been defensive. And I think that was true in his initial speech about a week or so ago. And it's been true in more recent, kind of comments and stuff like that. And that's a problematic reality because the president's job in this is to make a decision and be clear in his decision, and then explain it to the American people. Again, I think the American people can handle the reality that the ends of wars are not pretty, that they have their difficult components of them, and they're sometimes horrific components of them, and certainly we saw that a couple days ago. And so what Biden needs to do, I think, is to be clear, concise, not to talk it to death, as he sometimes has a tendency to do, and kind of forward-looking on this, to suggest that, you know, the U.S. is out of Afghanistan. That's what Donald Trump and Joe Biden both wanted, and frankly, what the overwhelming majority of Americans want. That a tremendous number of Americans and Afghan allies of the U.S. have left Afghanistan to go to safer places for them, what they see to be, and what I think they credibly understand to be safer places. We've got a challenge ahead in that resettlement. And we also have a challenge ahead in that region to figure out how we will relate to the Taliban, to countries in the region. And you know, ideally you find some diplomatic relationship that allows for the continued exit of refugees, as well as any Americans who may still be on the ground. And on top of that, that encourages, does everything in its power to make sure that Afghanistan doesn't become a dangerous player on the world stage. And in this regard, this is where I think Biden needs to not be defensive, but be very strong. And that is in framing out what the U.S. policy going forward will be, and how the U.S. will ideally work with the United Nations and other countries to try and maintain as much stability as possible in that part of the world. I mean, that's what he should be talking about, not, you know, trying to blame people on the ground in Afghanistan, which he did in his first speech, or frankly, blaming intelligence and things of that nature. You know, one of the reasons that Joe Biden was elected president was because of his immense experience. And that experience was supposed to help him to, you know, see through bad intelligence, to maybe, or at least to weigh it with the best possible judgment. And so when he gets defensive about it, I don't think it plays well, because unlike, for instance, the Donald Trump, who you knew didn't know anything about anything, Joe Biden is supposed to know a lot about a lot of stuff, and as such, ought to be making decisions based on his knowledge, based on his experience. And at the end of the day, by the way, I think he did do that. And now he's looking in hindsight and seeing, you know, a lot of criticism, a lot of unpleasantness, and over talking the response to it, rather than, again, being clear, concise, and forward looking.
John Nichols, always clear, concise, and forward-looking. Friend of ours, John, from the Nation, from the Cap Times. Always appreciate when you come around, sir.
Thanks, John.
Pleasure to be with you. Good talking to you both.
Folks, come back with us. Phone lines open. You could be next. Lead 44.
967-2789. We'll be right back. Got some sound from Rojo. And remember that former guy speaker from Janesville? He's also got some sound. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Mike Crute, and I'm the owner of Devil Radio. I'm asking for your support now. Wisconsin has 81 conservative radio stations, blanketing the entire state with conspiracies of stolen elections, anti-vaxxer messaging, and it's all fueled by dark money. The left's best and only on-air voices in our state cannot be funded entirely by pizza parlors. The battle for the soul of Wisconsin is ongoing. Go to devilradio927.com and click the Support Devil Radio tab. Give now if you can. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? Come down to 550 State Street. At Knuckleheads, we're your one-stop shop for all your CBD, glass, hookah, cigar needs. We got deals like buy four, get one free on papers, cones, CBD carts. Too many things to list. Call 608-284-0151. Ask a friendly neighborhood knucklehead any questions. Or check out the website, knuckleheadcbd.com. Knuckleheads at 550 State Street. We got you covered. I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there.
This is Rocker. I'm sitting on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies on East Wash, and I'm enjoying a floral forward Manhattan called As Long as There's Whiskey. It features Rocker Rye whiskey with a hint of blueberry, a touch of smoky Amaro, and it's finished off with St. Germain. It's a Rocker Rye Manhattan at Sal's Tomato Pies on Livingston. Ask for it by name, As Long as There's Whiskey. You can also enjoy Rocker Spirits at the Wisco and Tiny's Tap on Willie Street. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Jade Monkey. Come to the Monkey and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the Jade Monkey and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
Make sure you listen to Devil Radio 92.7. If you do, you go to heaven.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open for your take. Toll-free talk or text. Hit us up, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one, John Nichols from The Nation, from the Cap Times. Want to thank you for saving me in my verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. Dominic, you mentioned a couple of current and former Wisconsin Republicans sort of screwing the pooch here, killing the big lie. Now, we know that Robin Voss and former corrupted Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman, well, they're moving forward with a cyber forensic ninja audit, talking points. Really, they're going through kabuki theater for the benefit of what? The last guy, the guy that lost? I'm not sure at all why they think this is.
Well, certainly for the Trump supporters that are still out there, the anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, stop the steal, Trump terrorist types.
Well, I'm familiar with the Trump Taliban. Yes, I'm aware they're out there. Evan, we're going to need your help here. I want to play first and foremost the former speaker. We don't hear from much. Spending most of his time cashing checks these days, Dom.
And spending time with family.
Well, he is on the Fox News board, so he does have some professional outlet. But here he is, telling the truth. Ken Wayne Scott, a fine journalist at Channel 12 in Milwaukee, this courtesy of WISN. Paul Ryan, oh God, he's telling the truth here, Dom. This is going to hurt. Cut 40.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
You take that back.
Are you what? What?
More from Paul Ryan, cut 41, similar vein.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
What? Shut your whorish mouth, Paul Ryan. How dare you? I mean, don't tell that to Donald Trump or the Trump Taliban.
What about the courts? What about the Kraken? What about the lawsuits? More Paul Ryan, cut 42.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges. None of them went his direction. And so he legitimately lost. Is there mischief and shenanigans in elections? Sure. Is there fraud? Yes. Was it organized to the extent that would have swung the Electoral College in the presidential election? Absolutely not.
Even when Paul Ryan says, yes, of course there's fraud, you're talking about what? 20 people in the state of Wisconsin that double voted. Right. No, that's not going to overturn the 20,000 vote, loss for your guy. And when I say your guy, I mean, your guy, Paul Ryan.
Your guy, the guy you uninvited to your party a long time ago. Oh, so long ago. Paul Ryan, former congressman, former speaker of the House. Big mistake, cut 43, please, Evan.
I think it's a big mistake for the Republican Party to be a party about a person or a personality. So I think we'll just keep losing if we wrap ourselves around one person.
Says the man who was VP to a guy with no personality in Mitt Romney.
VP candidate.
Well, that's right. He didn't win, did he, Dom?
No, he did not. A couple more from Paul Ryan, cut 44, please.
We have not lost this much this fast in a long, long time.
I mean, and Lindsey Graham, lit it all up. I mean, he told it, if Donald Trump becomes the leader, they're going to lose this party and they deserve it. And you do. You absolutely do. Now, the question is, Paul Ryan on the board of Fox News. Is Fox News saying these things? I mean, how can he say those things, but then support a news, quote unquote, news outlet that contradicts many of these concepts?
Well, he's sort of been staying out of the limelight himself, the former speaker, Paul Ryan from Wisconsin. But will he be on the ballot again, Tom? I'm hopeful. Cut 45.
I like being where I am right now, a private citizen with a great family life, working on some big ideas at think tanks and teaching young minds at Notre Dame.
You don't see yourself on a ballot again?
Oh, I not presently, I don't. Who knows what the future holds down the road, but nothing in the near future, that's for sure.
Nothing in the near future.
That's
for
right.
sure.
Wait until the whatever is left, the remnants, the corpse of what was the Republican Party, the GOP, once it rots and turns into dust. Maybe at that point in 10 or 20 years, Paul Ryan will still be a young man-ish, right? Maybe he'll poke his head up then after he's, done cashing those checks and teaching those young minds at Notre Dame about how it all works.
Well, that was Paul Ryan with Ken Wayne Scott, one of Wisconsin's fine political journalists from WISN. But Rojo got caught clandestinely. He was at a big, a hootenanny in Oshkosh last weekend. They had something
Vegas?
A political picnic. You had to be invited. And then somebody, an interloper, if you will, Dom, somebody snuck in. We're not going
to have time to get the entire clip. All right. I just want to be clear.
Come on, man, I'm setting it up. I know what I'm doing here. I'm a trained professional.
Yeah, sure you are.
So Rojo kind of went one step beyond what Paul Ryan said. Rojo actually laid out the math for this clandestine interloper, this spy, if you will. And we know that Rojo's been caught before because, we've had Rojo on. We talked about when
he says
he was out
on the
at
radio,
Palm Springs, right? And he got caught by Ken Vogel, then with Politico. And he was telling a guy, well, don't give the money to me. Well, give the money to the Koch brothers organization.
Right. I'd rather have the use of the money than have to actually get it. And then you got to report it. It's just so cumbersome.
Well, at that time, he was effectively caught and he was quite outraged that someone would sneak up on him, to a finer resort in the Palm Springs area, eavesdrop upon him
at the pool.
And apparently, so Rojo got caught and then he came on this show and we did ask Ron Johnson, Ron, is money free speech? And Ron Johnson said, well, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Quite proud to tell us that at the time. Well, we didn't catch him, with his hand in the cookie jar, Dom. But this clandestine interloper has got video. We've got audio we're going to play for our audience when we come back. Rojo doing the math on the radio, and he proves that Donald Trump lost the state of Wisconsin. If you don't believe me, you conservatives, come back. Rojo's going to prove it to you. More devil's advocates on the other side. A longer clip, which I was fully aware of. On the other side, more devil's advocates with your Rojo proven Trump lost sound.
Stay informed with progressive news and talk on 92.7, Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
Hi, I'm Mike Crute, and I'm the owner of Devil Radio. I'm asking for your support now. Wisconsin has 81 conservative radio stations, blanketing the entire state with conspiracies of stolen elections, anti-vaxxer messaging, and it's all fueled by dark money. The left's best and only on-air voices in our state cannot be funded entirely by pizza parlors. The battle for the soul of Wisconsin is ongoing. Go to devilradio927.com and click the Support Devil Radio tab. Give now if you can. Thank you.
In-person culinary dinner theater is back at Delectable. This is a signature event where the chef is the star, the wine experts and mixologists, the co-stars. You are the audience, and your palate, the judge. Chef Jake Lawler will treat you to an extraordinary multi-course feast paired perfectly with wine and spirits. Enjoy local, organic, and sustainable ingredients. It's Culinary Dinner Theater at Delectable, located within Vom Foss on University Avenue. Reserve your seat now at delectablemadison.com.
Biden, Afghanistan. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden defends the evacuation from Afghanistan, during which more than 100,000 people, including some 5,500 Americans, made it out after the country fell to the Taliban.
90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out.
Biden says he had two choices after taking office.
Either follow through on the commitment made by the last administration and leave Afghanistan, or say we weren't leaving and commit another tens of thousands more troops going back to war.
Texas Republican Congressman Michael McCall.
We left Afghanistan as the Taliban celebrated their victory. And we've all seen the images and how sickening it is. We had an unconditional surrender to the Taliban.
I'm Tim McGuire.
Staples Connect has everything for back to school at amazing prices. Right now, Crayola 12-count colored pencils and 10+2 Crayola marker bonus packs and Bic round stick ballpoint pen 10 packs are just 97 cents each. So you won't just be ready for school, you'll be prepared parent of the year ready.
I just want to thank my family and Staples for making this possible.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back to school today and get more than ready for school. Ends 9/18, limit 30 on Crayola. Bic pens in store only.
Hey, y'all, this is your girl, Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Last night, the Madison School Board directed the school district to develop a vaccine mandate plan for all staff to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The district has until September 20th to develop the plan, with a full board vote expected on September 27th. Madison Teachers Incorporated, the local teachers union, a group of Madison legislators, and Madison Superintendent Carlton Jenkins all expressed support for the development of a mandate plan ahead of last night's vote. Also yesterday evening, the Waukesha School Board reversed their decision from last week to opt out of the federal program providing free school breakfast and lunch to all students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Partly cloudy skies in the forecast today, turning to overcast skies this afternoon. Winds up to 10 miles an hour and a high today of 79 degrees. Clear skies expected this evening with an overnight low of 56 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Tuesday 4 o'clock happy hour. It rolls on, Dom. And I've always had this plan. You know me well. And we've been around quite a few Trumpsters and Republicans of all stripes. And if you want to fool these people, and I got to tell you how challenging it is to fool the Trumpsters. Oh, easy, big fella. My clandestine plan to fool the Trumpsters.
Yeah.
I wear a red hat. Gets them every time.
Hell, it gets me sometimes. I look for Crudy the red hat and I see your red hats. That's usually how I find you, Crudy. But when we go to these Trump rallies, or we don't go anymore, but when we did, you were amongst a sea of red.
Can't wait to go back.
Hell no.
I've been missing the Trump rallies now.
No, you haven't.
The big high decibel super spreader events. Well, anyways, Ron Johnson went to this potluck, this barbecue, this political picnic over the weekend in Las Vegas. And apparently a clandestine spy, and they were pretty sneaky dumb. My understanding is they utilized a red hat to sneak up on radio.
See, watch out. Not everyone in a red hat is a comrade for the Trump Taliban.
Oh, be very careful who you allow into your inner circle, if you will. We've now been expelled from the Rojo inner circle, I suspect. But we've got a longer cut. Want to play it for the people because you're going to want to hear this. Ron Johnson, senator from the great state of Wisconsin, effectively does the math and proves to this clandestine activist that Donald Trump lost the state of Wisconsin. If you would, Evan, play the Rojo for the people.
You know that Joe Biden didn't win this election. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I just he didn't win.
Do you know that? Do you
think that Joe Biden won this election?
Do you know the in Wisconsin? Do you know the vote totals?
I don't know.
So without knowing the vote totals, you can't even state that opinion. I just really need all the small chatter. Just no. So let me give you the vote totals.
I know that there was a late night dump in Milwaukee or both that, but I don't remember exactly what the numbers were.
We've done a recount of Milwaukee. Prior to this election, I was the number one vote getter statewide with just under 1.5 million votes. Okay, this election, Trump got 1,610,000. No Republican has ever cracked 1.5 million. Numerous Democrats have gone over 1.6 or 1.5. So now, for the first time in history, we have a president's candidate beating my vote total by 130,000 votes collectively. The state assembly candidates and the just Republican state assembly candidates got 1,661,000. The 8 congressional candidates also got 1,661,000. So we obviously counted enough Republican votes. The only reason Trump lost Wisconsin is 51,000 Republican voters didn't vote for him. They voted for other Republican candidates.
So you're telling me that Joe Biden won the state?
Let's stop it there. It's a little hard to hear. A lot of back sound at this picnic, but if you didn't hear it, what Rojo just told this clandestine activist who apparently wore a red hat and tricked him was that Donald Trump underperformed other Republicans on the ballot by about 51,000 votes.
I got the specific quote, made the national news. Your favorite source, Crudy, the raw story. They printed it. And again, here's what Ron Johnson said. Collectively, the state assembly candidates, just Republican state assembly candidates, got 1.661 million votes. The 8 congressional candidates also got 1.661. So we obviously counted enough Republican votes. The only reason Trump lost Wisconsin is that 51,000 Republican voters didn't vote for him.
And Dominic, I don't love doing math on the radio, but if Joe Biden won the state of Wisconsin by approximately 21,000 votes, that's because 51,000 Republicans chose not to vote for Donald Trump at the top of the ticket. They didn't even have to go and vote for Biden. They just had to fail to vote for Donald Trump. And that would change the math of the outcome. And Donald Trump obviously won the state of Wisconsin in 2016 on the very same ballot that Rojo is very proud to tell you he had the most votes of any Republican ever, right? Like 1.5 million. Well, you know, collectively, the Republicans in the state of Wisconsin had 1.61 million. And apparently Trump underperformed the trailing candidates, the congressional candidates, the local elected candidates. So they still voted Republican. They just failed to vote at the top of the ticket for Donald Trump. Apparently they didn't like the guy, Don.
Yeah, weird how that would happen. Such a loving man, caring man who brings people together and works to help solve the problems of the United States.
Well, you know, the really crazy part is Rojo's telling the truth. Rojo's laying out the map. Rojo is telling what he thinks is a fellow conservative. Hey, you're wrong on this. Joe Biden won and Donald Trump underperformed the Republican Party.
And he says you're wrong on this because he first asked the question.
You're not even the vote smart enough to have an opinion on this if you don't know the vote totals.
Well, but maybe you know the impression of many Republicans is they got a feeling. I got a feeling. We have some more of the song. Can we start where we left off there, Evan? Is that possible? Okay, let's finish up the Rojo sound.
So you're telling me that Joe Biden won the state fair and square? Because I don't see it. I don't believe it.
Well, look at the totals. It's certainly plausible. There's nothing obviously skewed about the results.
There's nothing skewed about the results.
About the results in Wisconsin. No, I'm not saying what's happening in Maricopa County. I don't know. Saying look at the number again. Collectively.
Come on, Wisconsin and Georgia and Arizona.
Listen. You're not listening.
I am listening.
So listen. Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes. 51,000 more votes than Trump got. Trump lost by 20,000. If Trump got all the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates he would have won. He didn't get 51,000 votes that other Republicans got. That's why he lost.
That's why he lost.
Look at the totals, Johnson said. It's certainly plausible. There's nothing obviously skewed about the results. There isn't. That's the Republican, highest Republican elected official in the state of Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. At the same time, yesterday, the assembly in the state of Wisconsin said, yeah, Gableman, you are our guy. Here's a $700,000 to go find something.
Dominic, I've got slightly more comprehensive reporting than my favorite Raw story. The Journal Sentinel. The comments from Johnson, the most senior Republican in the state, put a dent in the expanding effort to examine the election. Recount and court rulings have confirmed Joe Biden beat Donald Trump by about 20,000 votes or 0.6 percentage points. In another video, Johnson said he supported efforts to review the election, but did not believe Republicans should focus on the voting machines, as some have insisted. He noted all votes in Wisconsin are cast on ballots that clerks retain. Again, he's using the truth against the Trumpster. You should know better, Ron. A little bit more, a quote from Johnson. I'll tell you, the last thing I would really focus on would be the machines. He said those reviewing the election should look at other issues, such as Madison events that allowed absentee voters to turn their ballots into poll workers stationed in the parks, grants Wisconsin municipalities received to help run their elections from Mark Zuckerberg, funded by Facebook, Dom, and the decision by cities like Milwaukee to count all absentee ballots at one location instead of at their polling places.
Now, I would interject here. All of those issues have been addressed. You can just do a search and find out what the results were. Every single one of those have already been addressed. So even in his moment of clarity, trying to talk down this pretend Trump Taliban, he still goes to issues that have already been concluded and addressed.
Dominic, those in charge of the review of the election have said they are focused on those issues, but some have pushed for an examination of the voting machines. Former state Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman, who is overseeing the review for Assembly Republicans, has said reviewing voting machines is one of his top 3 goals. One of his top 3 goals, fella. I'm not sure if I've got any more here.
I got Johnson went on to say, I really do think we're too concentrated on the machines. Aides to Johnson on Tuesday did not immediately react to the posting of the videos. They were posted by Lauren Windsor, my new favorite person. Lauren Windsor, executive producer of the liberal web-based program The Undercurrent and member of Democracy Partners, a group aligned with Democrats. Windsor also runs Project Veritas Exposed, a group aimed at unmasking the activities of Project Veritas, a conservative group that has long covertly recorded Democrats and liberals.
So between Paul Ryan and Ron Johnson, they're kind of screwing the pooch for Republicans. How are you going to continue propagating the big lie if guys like Paul Ryan and Ron Johnson are out there spewing the truth, Dom?
Do you think this will slow them down one iota?
I think it will be an embarrassment to Assembly Speaker Robin Vos when you contrast, what's he going to come out and say? Oh, no, the voting machines. Well, that's not what Ron Johnson says. That's not what Paul Ryan says. That's not what the numbers say or the clerks say or the fact that we've got 1,850 decentralized voting locations in the state of Wisconsin. What they are accusing, other than the acceptance of Facebook money, which was done by far more than 4 or 5 Democratic
hundreds of municipalities, yes.
If that's the greatest crime, you took some Facebook money to help administer the elections because Republicans won't properly fund the administration of elections. Why do you think these clerks were so eager? Every single clerk, including all the Republican clerks, hundreds of them in the state of Wisconsin, every single one that got the Facebook money had to apply for the money in a grant because they didn't feel like Republicans had sufficiently funded their electoral activities.
Well, if you fund the electoral activities and people show up and it's not a bottleneck, then, perhaps you might lose those elections.
I know they lose those elections, Dom. 844-967-2789. Profane Ronnie, our pal. How you doing, Ronnie?
Hey, Ronnie, what's happening?
Oh, yeah, honey.
I just called in to say you're welcome. And to what you say?
To what? And thank you.
Yeah. So Ron Johnson said that the difference was all these Republicans came out and voted statewide, but they did not vote for Trump. He underperformed everybody else. And that is directly because of me, because my campaigning was not, you know, to my sister and my husband and everybody, vote for Joe Biden. I would tell them how Trump will affect the post office and my retirement and my livelihood and my life. And I said, I am not asking you to vote for Joe Biden. I am simply asking you to not vote for Trump. And I think that message got through. So,
I wonder if
welcome.
Ben Wickler from the Democratic Party's list, and Ronnie, maybe instead of people like George Lakoff, maybe you should be doing the messaging and the framing for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, I don't know that that's actually a good message. Don't vote for my candidate. But, there were a lot of people that actually, when I, framed it in that way, it was kind of and vote against your well-being and your career and your livelihood and service to the public. So that was a good message, and it did work.
Well,
yay!
Thank you, Profane Ronnie.
Thank you, Ronnie. You rock, girl.
And thank you for not breaking any FCC guidelines today, because you've earned your nickname in the past, sister.
She lives up to her name, but just not today. Profane Ronnie.
844-967-2789. Dick from Madison, you're next, Dick. Welcome back. What do you got for
Dick.
us?
Well, you were asking earlier how we might spend this money saved on the war. How about the power grid?
Oh, slow down. We should follow the Texas example. Let's privatize it all, baby.
Right. And there, even the grid, I know the storm, I won't even go into that. But this morning, I brought this up to Matt Flynn, and I don't think he quite got where I was going with it. The talking heads, Richard Haas and that Denise Jordan that worked for W, she makes me sick to my stomach. But he was asked, both of them, how the last 20 years could have been done differently. And he said, well, sometimes in Afghanistan, we did a little too much, and sometimes not enough. What the hell does that mean?
Well, Dick, there are known knowns and there are unknown knowns.
Unknown knowns, known unknowns.
Appreciate you listening, fella. Come back with us. One last segment of the Devil's Advocates. If you want to be a part, you better dial now. 844-967-2789.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Hi, I'm Mike Crute, and I'm the owner of Devil Radio. I'm asking for your support now. Wisconsin has 81 conservative radio stations blanketing the entire state with conspiracies of stolen elections, anti-vaxxer messaging, and it's all fueled by dark money. The left's best and only on-air voices in our state cannot be funded entirely by pizza parlors. The battle for the soul of Wisconsin is ongoing. Go to devilradio927.com and click the Support Devil Radio tab. Give now if you can. Thank you.
Read all about it. Hey, what's going on? Oh, didn't you hear? Knuckleheads is moving locations, but not to worry. Knuckleheads will still be on State Street and your best shop for CBD and wellness. And it's going to be at 520 State Street on ground level, which is 100% handicap accessible. Stop by the new digs from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. any day of the week and get 15% off when you mention Devil Radio. I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there at our new location, 520 State Street.
X-ray.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Make some room on your home screen for the greatest radio app ever. Check out the Devil Radio app in the Apple and Google Play stores today and stream the greatest radio station ever wherever you go. The Devil Radio app, streaming 24/7 right from your smartphone. Taking on Righty Whitey Talk Radio on both sides of the dial from McFarland to Wanakee. Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up 844-967-2789. Lick It Up from Kiss. I think I used to roller skate to this song.
You better enjoy the Kiss now, because the Milwaukee concert at the American Family Insurance Amphitheater, September 5th, that has been canceled due to COVID. Paul Stanley and who else?
Gene Simmons.
A couple of Kiss. They were licking it up.
The mainstay. Right. My understanding, they were vaccinated as well. So seemingly breakthrough cases. So we hope everyone heals up real nice.
It's not just Kid Rock anymore. Dominic, other big breaking news in the state of Wisconsin. It's just not Ron Johnson telling the truth for a change. Rebecca Clayfish, probably the first one into the Republican gubernatorial pool to take on Tony Evers. Did you see her super PAC, which is illegal? You can't run a campaign through a super PAC, but Scott Walker taught her a few tricks in the trade, Dom. But she put out a multi-point bulletin. I mean, and this is like every conservative hot button issue is what she thinks is most important in this election.
Of course.
All the way down to the sanctity of high school athletics, the anti-transgender notion.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So anyways, also, better get Mako. My understanding is Republican state assemblyman also filed his paperwork today. Dom, could be a couple of Republicans jumping in the pool. Better get Mako, former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish, and State Rep John Mako, not the shark, not the cheap paint job, the Republican Assembly Speaker, or I guess he doesn't have a title. Anyways, Clayfish of Sullivan and Mako of De Pere both described the move to register committees with the Wisconsin Ethics Commission is the next step in launching their gubernatorial campaigns. Oh, let it rain, Dom. I've been waiting for Labor Day to roll around. As soon as Labor Day's done, I mean, not only have we seen the end of the war in Afghanistan, and I would point out the Summer of Love, it's going to continue all the way until the autumnal equinox, September 21st. We're going to extend the Summer of Love. But, kids going back to school and people turning back to the political. And this would be a great time to announce one's campaign if one wanted to run for governor. Right, Rebecca? She's Rebecca for real.
She's been running for the last, when did she organize this PAC? And that's when she started
about the day
running.
After Scott Walker and her lost
this whole, I know, Scott Walker taught her well and all this kind of workaround of the, election laws in the state. But I mean, if this is exactly practically what she is doing, should there be some consequence to that?
Is the deadlocked Wisconsin Elections Commission going to hold her accountable, or the former Government Accountability Board? I mean, who's going to hold her accountable, Dom? That's the whole point of the system. There is no accountability because Democrats basically play by the rules and Republicans do whatever they got to do to win. 844-967-2789. Let's go back to our fair audience. Carol from Madison, you're next. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Hi, Carol.
Hi, guys. 2 quick points. Number one, the Republicans who don't like Trump is kind of like the Democrats that didn't like Hillary and therefore didn't vote for her. I don't happen to be one of those, but there were a significant number of Democrats who couldn't stand Hillary, so they didn't vote for her. And I think if you did the same analysis, you'd find the same thing happened 4 years ago or thereabouts.
Yeah, but I don't think Hillary Clinton underperformed the Democratic ticket by 51,000 votes in Wisconsin, Carol. I mean, there might have been a few reluctant Jill Stein votes, but I don't think she didn't underperform like Trump did.
Probably not quite as badly, no, but I think that there probably was some underperforming if you would go back and analyze it.
I would agree.
The other point is that when you look at why democracy in the park happened, it wasn't just a fun little thing. They had a ton of absentee ballots that had been sent out, and Trump and Louis DeJoy were screwing up the post office. And so instead of relying on the post office to get all of our ballots back, they decided to do democracy in the park. They decided to put boxes out so people could return their ballots that way. And the Republicans were in denial that COVID was anything more than something that Robin Bosch should dress up for, like Halloween. So they weren't funding people. And therefore, to me, it's the Republicans' fault that we had to be creative and find other ways to get our ballots returned instead of relying upon Louis DeJoy, who wanted to kill the post office, and Trump, who was right behind him, pushing him.
Pushing him for that conspiracy, Carol. And thank you for the call. We're going to get a couple more in before the end of the show. But that is a great point. I think people sometimes forget about that. And not that any of those votes that were cast were fraudulent in any way. This is a quote unquote process crime from the Republicans' perspective, which of course is bunk. Thanks for the call, Carol. Wisco Paul, you are next. Welcome. What do you got, man?
Hey, Paul.
Thanks for taking my call, Doubles. Thank you, Profane Ronnie. You helped tip the scale. That's cool. Your last caller made a lot of good points. It was a very good call. And lastly, I think Rebecca Clayfish will be tough for Tony to beat. I certainly hope not, because the roads are just starting to get better out here. Thanks, Doubles.
Thank you, Paul.
Don't hit the Scott holes out there on the roads, Paul. 844-967-2789. Time for at least one more caller. Dawn from Watertown. Dawn, you're next. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dawn.
Hey, I just wanted to say on behalf of clerks all across the whole state, you know, unfortunately, because of the influx of the voting that happened in 2020, and because of being called liars and cheats and everything else, clerks are just jumping ship because we have been so maligned because of this election. What's frustrating is that we do the same processes for spring elections, April elections, August elections as we do in November presidential elections. People seem to lose that fact. Just because somebody lost doesn't mean we don't do the same processes for February, for April, for any special elections, or August. It's like, it's so frustrating that suddenly now we're not doing things right when we do the same stuff for every single election.
Dawn,
they just don't realize it.
Dawn, real quick, did you take any encouragement hearing the sound of Ron Johnson effectively telling the truth? There was no rigged election here. Donald Trump just lost because Republican voters didn't like him as much as other Republicans. Do you take any solace?
Oh, I am so frustrated by seeing just all this whole thing still hanging up. I mean, I'm so sick and tired of seeing the Trump signs hanging all over the place. I feel like I should put my Obama back in my yard.
Hillary, 2016. Thank you for your call, Dawn. Thank you to our fine guests. They included Warhawk, Matt Flynn. Catch him in the mornings. Matt Flynn Direct, 6 to 8 a.m. on Devil Radio. And of course, John Nichols from The Nation. Now stick around. Earl, he's more of a dove. Never heard him advocating for war. Have a great night, everyone. The summer of love is long, but Devil Radio is still going strong. We broadcast